It was supposed to be our protagonist's birthday, a day of joy for any prince. But for Hiel, the 17th prince of a powerful kingdom, instead of a celebration, nobles gathered at the palace to witness his exile. On his 15th birthday, his father, the emperor, gave him a dominion far away in a barren land. Hiel had no choice but to obey. Without a word of comfort, his father sent him straight into the ocean. After 15 days of seasickness, Hiel finally saw his new home, Sheol Reef. It was nothing more than a few sharp rocks rising out of the sea. It was an area so dangerous that even pirates avoided it. The ship dropped him off in a small boat and left without checking if he could even make it to the reef. So much for being royalty. Hiel's siblings didn't even care. They saw him as a failure and claimed the Sheol Reef was perfect for someone like him. Each of them had powerful magical marks called crests, like the crest of the sword god or the crest of the king of magic. On the other hand, Hiel's crest was weak and unknown. No matter how hard he trained, he couldn't match his siblings. Since childhood, he had worked hard to earn respect, but nothing changed. In one last plea, he asked his father for a place where he could at least survive. But the emperor said this exile was the will of the gods. Now, left with only a small bag of supplies, Hiel wondered if being executed would have been a kinder fate. As he got closer to the reef, he found no beach to land on. Instead, he spotted a narrow crack between the rocks. Violent waves pushed his boat closer to danger. He tried to use wind magic to slow down, but he couldn't even summon a breeze. Somehow he made it, dragging his things onto the rocky ground. Ahead of him was a dark cave. He went in hoping to store his supplies safely. But what he saw made broke into cold sweat. Inside were piles of skeletons of both humans and monsters. Hiel froze. Maybe they were people like him, exiled and left to die. If none of them survived, what chance did he have? Still, he brought his things inside and sat on a chest, staring out at the sea. It was both scary and beautiful, unlike the cruel world he had lived in, which was only scary. He slapped his cheeks and told himself he had to survive, no matter what. Escape was nearly impossible. His only hope was to be picked up by a pirate ship or a foreign one. Either way, he would probably be sold as a slave. His food and water would last about a month. Without magic, he would have to collect rainwater and catch fish to survive. First, he needed to clean the area and bury the bones. He opened his toolbox and pulled out a pickaxe. As soon as he held it, a strange voice echoed in the air. Acquired mining tool. He looked around in a panic, trying to figure out where the voice had come from. Then it spoke again, this time directly in his head. The voice said he had gained a mining tool and asked if he wanted to start mining. Shocked, he asked who was speaking. The voice explained that it was the advisor function of his crest, the Cave King crest. Hiel's crest had been quiet since he was born. Then it finally made sense to him. He was living in the royal palace this whole time, away from caves. But now that he was in one, it activated. The advisor said the crest didn't just make him better at mining, it also helped him level up while inside caves by doing cave-related tasks. Overwhelmed by all this new information, Hiel suddenly felt like mining was his true purpose. As soon as he decided to give it a try, the advisor suddenly optimized his mining capabilities. Because of this, large areas of dirt in front of him started to glow. These glowing spots showed the best places to mine. They were not only easy to break, but also safe, so the cave wouldn't collapse. To test it, Hiel gently struck the dirt, and the tool easily broke through a huge section. He also noticed how he could see clearly. One of the support features of his crest was night vision, which let him see clearly in the dark. He decided to carve out a small room to sleep in and continue mining with this new goal in mind. He also realized how fun it was. As he kept digging, his tiredness turned into excitement. The small room he had planned became a giant cave. At the same time, each swing of his tool dug out more as his mining skill rank increased. Later, the advisor asked if he wanted to collect the 168 stones he had already mined. Curious about where the rocks would go, Hiel learned that his crest could store everything he mined. The rubble around him made it hard to move. This forced him to collect the stones, which disappeared into his inventory, almost like magic. When the advisor asked if he wanted to make this automatic, Hiel agreed right away. He started to worry that he had already dug too far, but the advisor told him he was only 10 meters below where he started. Hiel didn't really know how far a meter was, but he could learn it later. After working for a while, he took a break and checked his inventory. It was full of ores: iron, copper, bronze, and even gold. But the most surprising items were the 15 magic crystals. Each one could increase his magic power depending on its size. Although Hiel was thankful for finally finding a solution after all these years, his curiosity soon took over to another ore. The next strange discovery he found was something called turtle stones. Each stone could increase his lifespan by 1 day. It was because of his mysterious crest that he had made these discoveries. He also began to see the Sheol Reef differently. This place, once feared, now felt like his own territory. With new energy, he started digging even deeper into the cave, completely forgetting his plan to escape. By the time he reached a depth of 30 meters, his inventory was full of different stones. Some were gems, others were turtle-shaped. Giving in to his curiosity, Hiel wondered how powerful he could become if he used advanced magic. With that hope in mind, he decided to use all 90 of his magic crystals on himself. Despite how amazing it sounded, nothing special happened. He didn't feel different, nor did he gain any new form or power. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Hiel quietly confirmed with the advisor that he had indeed used all of them. To test it out, he tried to clean up the piles of dirt he had dug through earlier. He raised his hand to use wind magic. The moment he did, a huge blast of wind roared. It was so strong that it blew away all the rubble, bones, and dirt like a storm. Everything flew out of the cave. Hiel stood frozen, his hands shaking from the surprise of using such powerful wind magic. He felt bad for disturbing the dead, but he couldn't believe that just 90 magic stones had given him so much power. Suddenly, he sensed something behind him. When he turned around, something jumped straight at his face. He fell to the ground, and a jelly-like creature wobbled on his chest. 3 days had passed since Hiel was sent to the shoal reef. Before starting another day of work, Hiel checked his tools, his food, and his new companion, Shell. He didn't know what kind of creature Shell was at first. It had followed him around ever since he found it, bouncing happily. Eventually, Hiel realized it was a slime, his very first friend in this lonely place. Mr. Advisor suggested taming the small creature. Although Hiel had read about taming before, he had never tried it. In his kingdom, monsters were hated, and people were not allowed to keep them alive. The taming skill only worked on friendly monsters, but there had never been any around for him to try it on. Now that no one was around to stop or judge him, Hiel decided to give taming a try. To do that, he needed to give the slime a name. After thinking hard, he named it Shell, since it reminded him of the Sheol Reef. Even though Shell didn't understand him, having someone nearby made Hiel feel less lonely. But Shell turned out to be more useful than he expected. It could stretch and help Hiel reach places he couldn't on his own. Using hand signals, Hiel could ask Shell to move things, or even carry him around. Thanks to Shell, Hiel started making more discoveries. In just 3 days, he had found 3 times more ore than before. He used about 500 magic stones to shock fish for food and to create clean water. At night, Shell became the best pillow, cool and soft, so Hiel didn't even have to flip it over. While mining, Hiel found 10 more slimes, but none of them were as smart as Shell. The next morning, Hiel woke up to Shell shaking him. Shell had changed shape and pointed toward something. Hiel followed its gaze and saw a crashed boat down by the rocks. Riding on Shell, he rushed over and found something surprising. Lying on the ground, badly hurt and bleeding, were a small girl, a bulked-up man, and an old one in robes. All of them had green skin. They were goblins, monsters humans were supposed to kill on sight. But Hiel no longer followed those rules. He saw they were still alive and chose to help them. He cast a healing spell and carried each of them up to the cave one at a time. The strong one was the hardest to move, so he saved him for last. Inside the cave, he did his best to treat their injuries and asked Shell to alert him if anything changed. Though he was nervous about being attacked, he hoped his magic could protect him. Trying to calm his nerves, Hiel picked up his pickaxe and returned to mining. With every strike of the tool, he felt more at peace. The steady sound helped him forget his worries. Later, while checking his inventory, Hiel found 2 new stones. One was a glowing, shining stone that gave off endless light, but it was useless to him since he could already see in the dark. The other was a Masoji stone, which could lift curses. Before he could continue digging, Shell came bouncing down to the cave, letting him know that the goblins had woken up. Hiel rode on Shell's back as they returned to the goblins. As they got closer, he overheard the goblins talking to each other. One of them, who seemed to be a general, was searching through their supplies. The little girl, who was actually a princess, begged him not to do anything. The general, sensing Hiel's presence behind them, quickly warned the others. They hid behind him as he raised his blade, expecting the worst. The princess, clearly upset, begged him to lower the weapon, but the general believed that Hiel was not a savior, but someone dangerous. When Hiel heard them speaking the same language as him, he was surprised. They were from the same continent. Still, he quickly focused and tried to calm them, saying he meant no harm. But their fear only grew. Hiel noticed that they weren't acting like enemies. Instead, they seemed scared of him. Then the general, suspicious, asked why Hiel was smiling in a strange way if he truly meant no harm. Confused, Hiel turned to Shell, who suddenly became a mirror. He glanced at his reflection and finally understood. His image alone looked scary enough to make someone like John Wick run away. He got engrossed in mining that his smile got stuck. Trying to show kindness, Hiel invited them to eat. He even used his magic to zap a few fish out of the water and offered them to share the meal. But instead of being comforted, they were terrified of his magic. The general, overwhelmed, told him to just end their lives if that was what he intended. Suddenly, the princess dropped to her knees, clutching her chest in pain. The others rushed to her side. She started shaking and Hiel, concerned, asked if she had truly recovered. Sadly, the old man with them admitted that she hadn't. She was cursed, one that slowly drained her life. Hiel was shocked. She was just a child. Even the strong and fierce-looking general began to cry. Feeling helpless, they decided they would rather die with the princess than leave her alone. But then Hiel remembered something, the mockery stone he carried. He begged them to wait, saying he might be able to cure her. They didn't believe him. They had already tried everything. Even Hiel wasn't sure it would work, but he wanted to try. As he used the stone, her body began to glow. Because her life had been shortened, he also used 79 out of his 89 turtle stones. When they asked what he had done, he explained that the mockery stone had the power to remove any curse. Then, to everyone's shock, the princess had gotten better and asked what just happened. She had returned from the edge of death. The general, overwhelmed with guilt, slammed his head on the ground to beg for forgiveness. The other two knelt as well. Hiel, who had gone back to roasting fish by the fire, told them to eat with him and to introduce themselves properly. The general of the Belden Goblin tribe introduced himself as Princess Rhi. The daughter of the tribe's king greeted Hiel. An old man in robes also stepped forward and introduced himself as Vari, a goblin shaman. In return, Hiel told them his name and said he was once a prince from the kingdom of Sandfales. Thought that Hiel's strong magic came from his royal blood, but Hiel politely said it wasn't. He explained that his power came from special stones he had found underground. When Hiel asked why they looked so sad despite their high status, their expressions changed. Explained that their hometown had been destroyed by orcs. Almost the entire royal family were killed, and only Rhi had survived the attack. The rest of the goblin clans had turned their backs on them, and they couldn't go to the humans either since humans hated goblins. In the end, they had no choice but to run away. The three of them escaped on a small boat with others, which later crashed on a reef. Rhi thanked Hiel for showing kindness to monsters like them. Even though she had faced so much pain and hate, she said she felt at peace now. With the 79 turtle stones she had gained 79 more days to live. Though her life would still be short, she was thankful that she could die without fear. The others were grateful too. But for Hiel, it wasn't the end. He told them about the turtle stones. If they dug for a week, they could find enough stones to gain a whole year of life for Rhi. The two older goblins were amazed. After a short pause, they asked if they could help dig too. Hiel agreed right away. Then Princess Rhi shyly asked why Hiel was willing to give them such valuable stones. Hiel gave her a calm look and said he was just thankful to have met them. He also said that mining was something he truly enjoyed. Tears filled Rhi's eyes and she began to shake as she thanked him with all her heart. Still, Hiel had some concerns. He was worried they might get hurt since they didn't have powers like him. But then, the advisor explained something. If Hiel tamed them, he could share some of his powers with them. They would gain better mining skills, the ability to earn experience, and could even dig more safely and efficiently. The general looked a little uneasy when he heard about them being tamed, but Hiel calmly explained that it was only meant to help them dig. He said they were free to say no, and that he would still give them the stones either way. Vari and nervously tried to explain that they were more than happy to serve him, but they asked him to spare their princess. To their complete surprise, the princess stepped forward and offered to be tamed herself. She said she wanted to repay her debt by helping in any way she could. She even asked Hiel to give her a new name. After the taming, their names changed. General became Elven. The shaman, Vari, was now called the Varus, and Princess Rhi was renamed to Reyna. Once they were underground, Hiel pulled out a glowing stone from his inventory, since the others didn't have night vision like he did. Everyone was amazed at how he had summoned the stone from nowhere. He promised to explain it while they worked. As they dug deeper, their upgraded mining skill kicked in and started highlighting shiny spots in the walls. Hiel began to explain why, but then stopped and decided to show them instead. When his pickaxe struck the cave wall, loud tremors shook the ground. Cracks formed and a cloud of dust filled the air. When the dust settled, they were stunned to see a massive hole had opened up ahead. Hiel told them that he wasn't always this strong, but they could reach this level too someday. He also noticed they didn't have an inventory like his, so he told Shell to call the other nearby slimes for help. From that day on, the cave became much livelier. The scene shifted to a memory from the past, one that showed Hiel lying on the ground trying to protect a small chained creature. Both of them were beaten and weak. 6 of his siblings stood in front of them, laughing. One of them raised a hand and formed a fireball, ready to burn them both to ashes. Hiel's face showed no hope. As he stared at the small vial hanging from his necklace, he drifted deeper into his thoughts. Then he heard Reyna calling his name, pulling him back to the present. She stood nearby looking worried. Elven also told him to take a break after the long day. Hiel held the vial tightly and said sorry. He explained that because of his Cave King crest, he could dig all day without getting tired. Even though that's what he claimed, he soon noticed a delicious smell in the air. Reyna said they were having apple pie. The others smiled, excited for the treat. It had been 6 days since Hiel arrived at the cave, and 3 days since he met the goblins. In that short time, they had worked together to build a bathroom, a small place to bathe, and a simple kitchen for Reyna. Reyna kept watching Hiel nervously as he took a piece of pie, but then he started choking and she panicked, until she saw him shivering from how good it tasted. Using the items and ingredients he had brought, Reyna would often cook something special. Elvin had gotten used to these little joys of mining, and even Varys didn't complain. After all, they were also helping extend the princess's life. With a warm smile, Reyna thanked everyone for their effort. Meanwhile, Hiel thought to himself, things were getting better, but many problems remained. He lacked enough supplies. For firewood, he could use the lumber he brought or pieces of driftwood that washed in. For food, they only had fish. Their clothes were also wearing out. He considered using his gems to buy supplies from any ship that passed nearby. His thoughts drifted again to how he had told Elvin to stop overworking himself just today. It almost felt like he was starting to think like a real lord. While searching for turtle stones, Hiel struck the ground. This time, a large piece of the rocky surface collapsed, revealing a hollow cave just big enough for him to enter. As he stepped inside, he saw that the walls were covered with stones that gave off a dull orange glow. They looked like the shining stone he had, but not quite the same. As he walked deeper, he noticed the ground felt much softer than the one outside. He wondered what kind of soil it was. Then he looked up and froze. Hanging from the ceiling above him was a huge black spider with a strange shape. His eyes widened in fear. He thought the creature would attack and eat him, but instead, the spider gently landed and quickly moved deeper into the cave. Curious, Hiel followed it and soon saw that the spider was a mother. She was only trying to protect her young ones from someone she didn't know. After Hiel apologized, Mr. Advisor saw that the spiders were not aggressive and asked if Hiel wanted to tame them. Meanwhile, near the cave's entrance, the others were starting to worry about Hiel's long absence. Elvin heard footsteps behind him and asked if Hiel finally changed his mind. From the cave came Hiel, followed by a group of large, scary-looking cave spiders. A frightened general backed up against the wall, forgetting that he was supposed to protect the princess. Hiel calmly explained that the mother spider named Mama Terran and her children had joined them. Varys was shocked at Mama Terran's size. He explained that cave spiders back in their land were much smaller. They were known for their strong silk, stronger than iron, but also for their habit of eating both humans and monsters without care. However, the spiders here seemed friendly. The little ones played with slimes and rocks while their mother carried a small shell on her back. Varys then explained that the soft ground Hiel had felt earlier was actually spider droppings. As strange as it sounded, it was an excellent fertilizer for farming. When the group wondered where they could grow crops, Hiel offered to show them something. He led them to the cave he had come from earlier. Inside, they were surprised to see a carefully carved staircase going down, lit by the glowing stones. Hiel proudly explained that he had widened the narrow path on his way back, thanks to an upgrade to his crest, now ranked Cave King Level 2. Hiel had gained new skills. One was the design skill, which let him reshape whatever he mined. He could also process and combine things like rock and sand from his inventory to make gravel, using the workshop skill. Even better, he could now use his workshop and access his inventory outside the cave. Lastly, he gained the ability to give night vision to his tamed monsters. With all these new skills and discoveries, the group knew they had a lot of work ahead. The next day, the sound of metal hitting metal filled the air. The three men worked hard to make iron tools. Varys planned the designs, Hiel handled the ores, and Elvin put the tools together. At the same time, Reyna started knitting clothes, towels, and other things using spider silk. Hiel often visited the spiders, who were now in charge of farming with the tools he gave them. Surprisingly, one of Terran's kids showed an unexpected talent. With several pickaxes, the child mined so well that it reminded Hiel not to be beaten as the Cave King. When they planted a leftover apple seed in the spider-made soil, a full apple tree grew within minutes. It was heavy with red fruit. The orange stones Hiel had seen earlier turned out to be sunstones, which helped living things grow faster, like Terran. Hiel searched for more but only found 678, so he left their care and the farm planning to Rey. He worried she might push herself too hard, but he trusted her because she always gave her best. Riding on Shell, Hiel slid down the staircase slide he built and continued mining with the spiders. He felt calm and focused, with a new goal in mind. Even though Princess Reyna looked small, she was actually 15, just like Hiel. She had gained 5 more years of life, but he knew she wanted to live longer. Since he was the best at mining, Hiel kept searching for more turtle stones. During one dig, he found a strange white stone and put it aside. As soon as it went into his inventory, Mr. Advisor identified it. It was a dragon orb, a rare item that could bring the dead back to life. Shocked by the discovery, Hiel told everyone to dig more in that area, but even with help from the tiny furballs, they couldn't find another one. He quickly returned the orb to the outside world, worried that if he died, no one could recover or use it. Just then, Elvin's voice called from above, sounding urgent. Hiel didn't wait for details. He rushed up the stairs and safely placed the dragon orb on a ledge. But as he ran, the orb rolled away and landed on the skull of one of the nearby skeletons. By the time Hiel reached the surface, Elvin's voice had grown desperate. Out at sea, their tribe's ship was struggling against huge waves. Despite the wild waves, the ship stayed upright. Tears filled the goblins' eyes. Their friends, including Elvin's daughter, were still alive. Since docking the large ship could cause problems, Hiel suggested that Elvin use his boat to reach them instead. At the same time, Hiel brought out a heavy pouch full of gems and other valuables. He offered it as a farewell gift, something the tribe could use to start a new life wherever they chose to settle. Elvin was confused by Hiel's sudden offer. Sensing this, Hiel explained that since their friends had finally arrived, it was the perfect chance to leave this dangerous place. He also seemed excited at the thought of being able to trade with them in the future and maybe get some useful items. A moment of silence passed. Reyna and Varys looked uncomfortable and sad while Elvin quietly trembled behind them. He was in pain. With a shaky voice, he begged Hiel not to abandon them. His words struck Hiel deeply. Even though they weren't his tamed monsters, they had still sworn loyalty to him and would convince the others to do the same. Reyna and Varys quickly agreed. They said with pride that as his followers, they should stay with their leader. Hiel, caught off guard, admitted that he was grateful, but reminded them that an opportunity like this might never come again. Reyna, who understood what this meant, asked in a soft voice if Hiel would go with them. Hiel couldn't answer. As he looked back at the reef, he remembered his original plan to leave, but now he couldn't bring himself to go. Understanding his silence, Reyna made a firm decision. If Hiel wouldn't go, then neither would they. Elvin gave him a grin and Varys smiled too, saying they felt the same way. Just as Hiel was getting caught up in the emotion of the moment, he noticed something wrong. The ship, which was trying to float upright a while ago, was now tipped over. Elvin quickly noticed their people had been thrown into the sea and were now struggling to stay above water. Reyna ran to Hiel's boat to try and rescue them, and Elvin and Varys quickly followed, but Hiel could see they wouldn't make it in time. A heavy feeling from his past returned, the same helplessness he felt when he failed to save a small creature, crushed by his own siblings. As Reyna watched in shock, Hiel didn't hesitate. He jumped off the cliff, heading straight toward the jagged rocks below. He pushed away all doubts in his mind and ran toward the drowning goblins. As the Cave King, he was determined to stay strong. He used all 8,879 of his magic stones and cast a giant freezing spell on the water just before he reached it. Reyna and the others watched as the wild waves turned to solid ice, strong enough to hold up the sinking ship. Even Hiel was surprised by the spell's power, but he quickly focused again and told Elvin to cross the ice instead of using the boat. With a loud cry, Elvin jumped off the cliff, but the moment he landed, he slipped into because the ice was too slick. Hiel blamed himself for not thinking ahead, but Taryn quickly grabbed Hiel and carried him on her back. Her strong legs helped her stick to the ice path. The little ones followed her closely, stepping in her tracks. They helped Elvin up, and he said sorry for judging them unfairly before. Shell and the other slimes rushed over, and at Hiel's command they changed shape. They turned into floating blocks that the goblins could climb on or hold tight to. Meanwhile, Taryn and her children shot webs for them to grab. Hiel kept freezing the waves again and again as they came crashing in. After several hours of hard work, though some got a bit hurt, all the goblins safely made it to shore. A happy little Reyna ran up to thank Hiel for saving all 205 of their goblin friends. Before he could answer, a louder cry interrupted them. Elvin was crying with joy because his daughter was safe. Fu begged him to stop embarrassing her. Hiel and the others could tell that their general was truly happy, even though he had once left his own daughter behind to protect the princess. The princess thanked Hiel for everything he had done. Hiel stayed quiet for a moment before saying he hadn't done it alone. Taryn, her children, and even the slimes helped make it possible. With a small smile, Hiel thanked them for staying with him. Varys gave a small bow and thanked Hiel for being kinder than any humans they had known. But then he suddenly stopped and asked about the person behind Hiel, someone who had been following him. Hiel, also curious, turned around and saw something strange. There stood a short person with no clothes, arms crossed, just staring. Hiel, confused, asked if he was from their ship. If the man had been on the island this whole time, his lack of clothes would have been hard to miss. Hiel introduced himself and asked who he was, but the man said nothing. Instead, the stranger walked over to the temporary camp and started eating the fish that was being cooked, showing that he was hungry. He didn't speak at all. Ignoring the mystery for now, Hiel decided to get him dressed. The next day, Hiel's pickaxe struck a sharp-edged stone. With 205 new residents, he prepared 41 rooms, each one for 5 goblins. The island became even more active when Hiel managed to tame them all, but the hardest part for him was giving names to every single one. Since their ship was badly damaged, they couldn't recover many supplies. This made it even more important for them to work hard to produce their own daily needs, which were still in short supply. That afternoon, Reina came to Hiel carrying a special cup on a tray. She thanked him for all his hard work and asked him to try what she had made. Hiel quickly took a sip, drawn in by the familiar smell and color. It was grape juice. With a small laugh, Reina explained that she had been lucky to find a few rotten grapes from the ship. From those, she took the seeds and used sunstones to grow a healthy grape tree. Even though the vineyard was still small, she was sure it would grow well in the coming years. Hiel was shocked when she mentioned years and praised her for thinking ahead. Her face turned red and she promised to do her best to help him. Just then, a loud commotion pulled Hiel away. A goblin blacksmith was shouting at the quiet dwarf who had only been watching his work. To Hiel's surprise, the others were calling the strange, naked dwarf Mappa. Mappa moved closer to the blacksmith's forge, looked at the metalwork, and threw it aside with a sigh. Angry, the blacksmith shoved his hammer into Mappa's hands and dared him to make something better. The moment Mappa grabbed the hammer, his eyes lit up with focus. He stepped to the workbench. When he raised the hammer, it began to glow with a pale light. His muscles grew and he started hitting the iron with great force. His strikes were not just strong, they were also fast and very accurate. After cooling and heating the iron several times, Mappa created a pickaxe head that looked like a piece of art. But tools like pickaxes needed to be tough, not just good looking. To test it, Hiel went down to the deepest level where he had mined before. As he used the pickaxe against the stone wall, all his doubts disappeared. It worked better compared to the usual ones. Hiel praised the tool and Mappa gave a thumbs up. But then Hiel noticed something was wrong. The dragon orb he had placed earlier on a nearby rock was missing. Looking around, he saw that the boulder nearby was actually a mound that looked like a grave. Its shape and size felt oddly familiar. He realized that what he had failed to see in the shadows before were actually Mappa's old remains. After the dragon orb was combined, a legendary blacksmith came back to life. Hiel didn't feel sad about losing the orb. Instead, he felt relieved because it helped him gain a new comrade. With better tools, the first thing they did was build a proper coast outside. After that, they started fixing the goblins' broken ship. Mining became their top priority. During that time, Hiel found a few more friendly slimes. After taming them, they became very helpful, especially in carrying things around. Everything seemed peaceful at first, but soon they noticed that the number of turtle stones they found started to go down. When Hiel realized this, he remembered Reina's smile, the one she gave while pretending everything was fine when it really wasn't. That memory hurt him deeply. So far, they had only managed to extend her life by 10 years. Hiel believed she wanted to live longer, but the truth was, it was him who wanted her to stay. He wanted them to live on the reef together for many more years and see it grow. As he thought about all this, his work led him to uncover a hidden cave. Beyond that hole was a large room. The walls were filled with detailed carvings, and in the middle stood a grand pedestal. It didn't seem like a forgotten place anymore. Hiel started to believe that a lost civilization might have once lived there. On top of the pedestal rested a strange golden oval-shaped object. Planning to collect it, Hiel picked it up. His first find was a heartstone, an item that could act as an artificial core for a doll he could build by combining materials in his inventory. The second item, a golden egg, was identified by Mr. Advisor as a change stone. This item could evolve a monster into a completely different species. Even though it kept the monster's age and personality, the idea of it changing so much made Hiel feel uneasy. While sitting around a bonfire near the crashing waves, Hiel told the others about the change stone. As he spoke, Mappa helped himself to the fish. When asked, Varys explained that all goblins had heard of the change stone through old legends. He added that hobgoblins and leaf goblins were once regular goblins too. Some had evolved into hobgoblins in their search for strength, while others who chose to live deep in the forest became leaf goblins. This was all thanks to the change stone. Because of this, Hiel finally understood a little about evolution. He then asked if Elven was also a hobgoblin. Elven said no, and Varys explained that Elven was born with his strong body. After that, he walked off, wondering what the child of an elf might have looked like. When Varys saw the legendary stone, he was shocked. Hiel then shared what his crest had told him, that the stone would not only evolve a monster, but would also renew its lifespan. The group was amazed. When Hiel asked if they wanted to try it, Varys kindly said he was curious but didn't want to change his body. Elven said he liked his muscles too much to lose them. Reina didn't say anything at first. Then she quietly said she wanted to help Hiel in any way she could, even with just a little magic. But she felt too shy to ask for something so valuable. Varys supported her idea, saying goblins couldn't use magic at all. Hiel agreed, adding that evolving would not only help her use magic but also let her live longer. After hearing that, Reina confidently said she wanted to evolve. Hiel gave her the change stone. Holding it tightly, Reina made a strong wish from the bottom of her heart, to stay by Mr. Hiel's side for a long time. The stone began to shine brightly. The light was so strong that everyone had to cover their eyes. When the glow faded, they looked at her in awe. Reyna had changed into a beautiful elf-like beauty. Even Reyna was confused by her new body, but Mappa was so shocked by her appearance that his nose started to bleed. A few hours later, Hiel slowly woke up and recalled how Reyna evolved just now. As he opened his eyes wide, he saw Reyna looking down at him. His eyes widened when he realized he had been sleeping on her lap the whole time. Embarrassed, he quickly jumped away. Reyna calmly told him that he had collapsed out of nowhere. He remembered how Mappa's strong nosebleed had knocked him out and was shocked to learn he had been asleep for about 6 hours. It was still dark outside. He asked Reyna if she was feeling okay since her appearance had changed and now looked more human. With a soft voice, Reyna admitted she didn't like how she used to look. She said she had been cursed from birth, which made her grow slowly and shortened her life. As a princess, people often mocked her because her sisters were much more beautiful. At first, her parents tried to help, but eventually gave up and began avoiding her. Because of all this, when she used the transformation stone, her small wish to become beautiful influenced the change. She apologized for using such a valuable treasure for something that felt selfish. But Hiel could tell that ever since he arrived on the island, something had changed in both of them. He didn't mind her personal wish. He was just glad she had a new life to look forward to. He felt it would have been a waste if her body hadn't changed the way she wanted. Reyna, wanting to thank him, offered everything she had in return. As she held his hand tightly, he felt nervous and jumped a little when he noticed that Mappa and Shell had been quietly watching them the whole time. Using the webs from Terran and the others, she wove a new set of clothes for herself. Many of the goblins were surprised by how different she looked, but her beauty still left them in awe. At first, they couldn't believe it was really her. However, when they saw her working hard like she used to, they slowly recognized the person they had known. Now able to use magic, she devoted herself to learning it from Hiel and Varys. She also trained in martial arts under Elvin, but that wasn't all. Reyna was finally able to help with the chores and farm work she couldn't do before. While watching her for a moment, he flinched when Varys suddenly appeared behind him. Embarrassed, he tried to explain that he wasn't looking at her legs even though he clearly was. Varys, however, pointed out that her crest of the farmer was located there. Back when Hiel had put Reyna in charge of the plantations, he had made a wise choice without knowing it. Her crest helped the crops grow well. He was surprised to learn that even goblins had crests. Up to that point, he thought only humans could use such powers. At that moment, Varys showed his own crest, the crest of the Sorcery King on his palm. It was rare and strong, one that only one of Hiel's brothers had ever possessed. Sadly, Varys couldn't use magic simply because he was a goblin who had no magic power. Hiel felt bad hearing this, but Varys explained that, even with this limitation, he was still lucky to study magic and become a shaman. Before Hiel could offer to help him, Varys kindly asked that they stop the conversation for now and focus on the task at hand. The day before, Varys had shared a plan to take land back from the sea to make the island bigger. They needed more space to grow food, and they also thought it would be nice to have a larger area where the children could play. Varys asked Hiel to just give him the raw materials instead of pushing himself too hard, especially since Hiel had already gathered a lot. But Hiel wanted to try something while he still could. He said that if he failed, Varys could take over. Now that Hiel could finally use his workshop skill outside the cave, he had an idea. First, he combined stone and sand to make gravel. Then he processed it into rough blocks, shaping them into usable rocks. He used a good amount of magic stones to control the rocks and put them where they were needed. He used water magic to create water, then mixed it with spider dirt to make a cement-like paste. This paste helped the rocks stick together. The goblins were shocked to see such magic, but the others were already used to things that didn't follow normal rules. In the end, a flat and wide piece of land was made. The children ran to the beach, happy and excited. Hiel felt pure joy when he saw their innocent smiles. Reyna arrived and said she would work hard to grow lots of crops in the new field. But just as Hiel turned to look at her, a giant bird flew down toward the open area and swallowed Mappa whole. Everyone froze in fear when they saw the giant killer birds flying toward them. Hiel quickly told everyone to run back into the cave. As they moved, Elvin's daughter, Fu, noticed a child trip and fall. She rushed to help him, but suddenly Rhianna screamed in panic. One of the killer birds was charging toward them. In the very next moment, the bird's head was gone. Hiel saw the strong hand holding the weapon and knew right away. It was Elvin, the goblin general and Fu's father. Angry that the birds had gone after his daughter, Elvin attacked them without mercy, cutting them down one after another. Hiel stood in awe at Elvin's strength, but he quickly snapped out of it and joined the fight. Just then, someone yelled, "Shield!" Hiel turned and saw that Reyna had created a magic shield behind them, protecting their backs from another bird. She told them to keep fighting while she defended them. The three worked together. Reyna guarded them, while Elvin and Hiel attacked. Soon, they found a rhythm, defending and attacking in turns. From above, Varys shouted that everyone else had made it safely into the cave. He told them to hurry back too. Elvin agreed and offered to cover their retreat, But Hiel refused to leave Elven behind. He took out a hearthstone from his inventory and summoned 300 rocks to make dolls. As the birds came again, a pair of giant hands rose up from the ground. Hiel had used the rocks to build a massive golem, and it grabbed the birds. Meanwhile, one of the birds had tried to swallow Ma but couldn't handle the awful taste and threw him up. Shell rushed forward and caught Ma just in time. With the worst part over, Hiel asked Elven if he could gather the rest of the birds in one place. Elven agreed. He threw his axe, which had a rope tied to it. While holding the rope with his arm, he used it to spin and trap the birds. The rope was made from spider silk, so the birds couldn't break free. Seeing a chance to finish the fight, Hiel told everyone to get down. When they did, he released a powerful blizzard spell. It instantly froze the birds solid. Loud screeches filled the air as the few remaining birds fled. Seeing the killer birds leave, victory was theirs. The goblins cheered and celebrated. Even though Elven was covered in blood, he laughed and praised Hiel's power with pride. Reyna was really worried about his safety, so she ran to him, but suddenly her legs gave out. Her body shook as she realized how scared she had been. Still, with a calm look, she said that being beside Hiel made her feel safe. Hiel showed her that his legs were shaking too. The two of them laughed together. Soon the rest of their tribe came over and cheered. It wasn't much, but Hiel had finally found people who accepted him. For the first time, he felt that even someone like him could become a real feudal lord. One thing was certain though, roasted killer bird meat was on the menu that day. The bodies of the killer birds were carefully cut into large pieces after being skinned. Their feathers became popular among the children, while the smell of the meat, fried, roasted, and boiled for stew, spread across the island. Everyone raised a toast to their leader, Hiel, and joined the big feast. Well, everyone except the golem. It had been many days since they last ate real meat, so this felt like a celebration. For Hiel, this feast was unlike anything he had experienced, even compared to his royal life. When Reyna handed him a full plate, he gratefully accepted it. As soon as he took his first bite, he was lost in the rich, tasty flavor. Happy that he enjoyed her cooking, Reyna also gave him a bowl of soup. The soup was delicious too, but Hiel noticed something different about the meat's taste. Reyna explained that each part of the killer bird had a different flavor. The wings and legs tasted like chicken, the breast tasted like beef, and the shoulders tasted like pork. Even though more attacks from these birds could be dangerous, they now saw them as a good food source. Varys came over and suggested that they have the golem stand outside the cave, since the killer birds didn't attack creatures larger than themselves. He also suggested building strong watchtowers and walls to protect their crops from salt damage. Hiel agreed but asked if he could be the one to process the rocks they needed. Just then, Hiel heard someone chewing loudly behind him. It was Elven's daughter Fu, who was munching on a rib and staring at him. She suddenly began hopping around as if studying him. Hiel knew who she was but couldn't remember her name. Realizing this, she reminded him that her name was Full, the name he had given her. He apologized for forgetting and asked if she wanted something. With a serious face, Full asked why he was so strong. When Hiel said it was because of the magic power stones he found while mining, she became excited and wanted to dig for some herself. Reyna gently reminded her that she needed to evolve first before she could use magic. Still, Fulla said she was ready to evolve. Hiel apologized again, explaining he didn't have any more change stones at the moment. Her father, Elven, showed up and told her to stop bothering Hiel. He apologized, saying Fulla just wanted to become stronger. Fulla explained she couldn't help it. Having such a strong father made her want to grow too. Elven felt happy hearing his daughter admire him. Hiel told her that if she ever found a change stone, she could use it. Fulla got excited and ran off, saying she would help because she was good at mining. Her father confirmed this with Hiel. Fu then asked the stuffed creature Mappa to make her a pickaxe like Hiel's. Out of the 1,800 magic stones Hiel had, he used 800 on Reyna. She felt a sudden change and asked him about it. Hiel explained that he had increased her magic power. Although surprised, Reyna promised to make the most of his gift. Elven came back with another large plate of food, urging them to eat more and grow stronger. That day, they finished reclaiming the entire land and celebrated like never before. It became known as the first Memorial Day in Shul Reef. The next day, Hiel sneezed loudly. Reyna had built an underground freezer to store leftover meat, and it had made the air colder than usual. She had used all of her increased magic power to build it. With the steel doors shut tight, the frozen meat would hopefully last for over half a year. Of course, Mappa was the one who made the large steel door. Surprisingly, he also designed the inside of the storage room. But that wasn't the only thing the dwarf worked on. Mappa also planned and fixed up the entire forge, making it better than ever. Now that Reyna could finally use magic, she started to rely less on others. Under the guidance of Varys and Elven, she grew more skilled. Their team also continued to build strong walls along the coast, which let Hiel return to mining without any worries. Fulla was shocked to hear that there had been no cave-ins or accidents so far. Hiel couldn't explain it well, but he believed it was because of his crest of the Cave King. No one could believe it since Hiel had no mining experience and barely knew what he was doing. Fuel also noticed the area needed better airflow and cleaner surroundings. Dust was building up and it could be dangerous to breathe in. Worse, certain gases could be poisonous or even explode. Hiel got scared but also amazed by Fula's knowledge about mining. She said she had been interested in mines since she was young and her crest of the miner. Though not as rare as his, it was still very useful. Hiel was happy to have someone he could trust and learn from. Even though Ful didn't have a magic advisor or automatic tools, she made up for it with skill and instincts. She couldn't mine as fast or collect as much as him, but she was still his toughest rival since Terran Jr. One day, while they were busy mining, Fula asked Hiel if he had ever had a father. Hiel paused, then gave a sad look and said softly, "I did." Fula believed his father must have been a great man, but the pain on Hiel's face told a different story. No matter how far he was from them, he was still scared because they were the real monsters. They had strong powers and showed no mercy. When he asked Fula if she wanted to be as strong as Elvin, she said no, but it was clear she actually did. He quietly laughed while she struck a wall hard. The impact showed there was empty space behind it, which she hoped was a cave with a change stone. The room they found this time was much bigger, but it still had the same detailed carvings. There were also empty spots where strange statues stood still. As soon as he realized something was wrong, he shouted for Fula to stop, but it was already too late. One of the statues started moving toward her, its eyes glowing. Hiel quickly made a shield using magic to block the fire blast it shot. After making sure Fula was safe, he noticed something else. Unlike the golems he made before, these ones could use magic too. One even attacked with a sword. As he focused on one, 4 others surrounded him. Not bothered by the numbers, he crossed his arms and cast a storm spell that pushed them all away. His magic was so strong that the heavy golems were thrown against the walls. Fula stammered an apology for waking them up, but Hiel forgave her because even he hadn't expected such strong golems. Now, they were gone because of his magic. Shell quickly ran off to warn the others to stop mining for now and avoid more dangerous surprises like this. While waiting, Fula found a gem and excitedly asked if it was a change stone. Sadly for her, Hiel said it was a sorcery stone, which could store magic and might be used to make a doll. She felt a bit disappointed. That was until Mappa suddenly showed up from the shadows, quiet and smooth like a sneaky thief. While the two shouted in surprise at his sudden arrival, Mappa walked past them, picked up the huge sword that had belonged to the fallen golems, and started dancing while whistling a cheerful tune. He happily made his way out through the entrance and disappeared from their sight. Fula was confused, wondering if all humans were crazy and naked like Mappa, but Hiel firmly denied it. Instead, he pointed out how happy Mappa looked for once. He wondered if the sword had something to do with it. When he tried to pick one up, it wouldn't move at all. Even with both of them trying together, the giant sword didn't budge. Hiel used his brain and tried to store it directly in his inventory, but the system advisor told him that he could only collect things he had mined himself. He was a bit disappointed that he couldn't take any crafted items. He thought about breaking the sword apart, but even his Cave King crest, he couldn't damage it. Hiel didn't give up. On his next strike, the sword finally broke, but so did his pickaxe. He was a little sad that Mappa's special axe was destroyed. However, the pieces of the sword turned out to be made of orichalcum, a legendary metal known for being strong and full of magic. Hiel was confused again because the description said the metal was supposed to be light, but he still couldn't lift it. The scene changed to Elvan, who was now trying to lift the same sword Mappa had brought. Reyna noticed Hiel, Ful, and Shell coming out of a nearby cave. She explained that everyone had taken turns trying to lift the sword, and now it was Elvan's turn. Hiel then revealed that the sword was made from 300 orichalcum ingots. Fula rushed to stop her father, begging him not to try something so dangerous. But with a loud roar, Elvan managed to lift the sword onto his shoulders. The crowd cheered as they saw the crest of the warrior glowing on his shoulder, which explained his sudden strength. However, before he could celebrate, his grip slipped. The sword's weight caused him to fall and he hit his head hard on the ground. The crowd gasped as he lay still, and Hiel quickly ran to cast a healing spell on him. Hiel told Elvan not to try such risky things again, but then Fula crashed into Hiel's stomach, making things worse. Elvan became very worried when he saw his daughter shaking. She started crying and blamed him for making her so scared. Elvan and Reyna smiled gently as he apologized and gave Fula a big hug. From the corner of his eye, Hiel saw Mappa quietly walking away with the huge sword. He had thrown it into a forge, and the orichalcum was melting under the intense heat. Dwarves were noble beings who loved working with rare metals. With their incredible physical strength, mysterious techniques, and noble spirits, they were known far and wide. When Hiel watched Mappa work so seriously with the orichalcum, he finally believed that Mappa was a true dwarf. Mappa handed his finished work to Hiel, and as soon as Hiel held it, he was amazed. The pickaxe Mappa made felt extremely light, just like it was described before. After smelting all the orichalcum, Mappa went on to make many different tools. There was no doubt now, he truly was a real dwarf. But Hiel still wasn't sure why he always worked without any clothes on. A loud crash followed the scene as Elvin's axe bounced off something surprisingly strong. Instead of feeling fear, the great warrior felt thrilled. He dropped his twin axes, clapped his hands together, and got ready to fight the enemy with just his fists. Meanwhile, deep inside the mines, Fule took a deep breath and confirmed that the air was safe. On Fulis's advice, they had created a small air hole. Mappa added a complex tidal-powered fan to help push fresh air inside. Even though they were excited to start mining, they decided to wait until the whole cave was properly filled with clean air. Later, the team agreed to spend the day at the forge. Hiel, on the other hand, began planting a few golems. He used 14 artificial hearts and 10 magic stones he had recovered from broken golems to build new guard golems. Ma worked on equipment nearby. His drawing stick kept moving, guided by his thoughts, and before he realized it, he had gotten carried away. In front of him was a sketch of a golem filled with all sorts of weapons. With a silly look on his face, he kept adding details like a kid playing with a new toy. Suddenly he jumped. Reina had silently appeared behind him and was looking at his drawing. Embarrassed, he quickly tried to erase it. She then asked if he had time to spare. When he asked why, she simply said it would be more fun if he saw it himself. With a teasing smile, she led him through a neat storage room full of sunstones. When they reached the plantation area, Hiel's mouth dropped open. The once barren coast had turned into a lush garden filled with plants. He saw apples, grapes, lemons, and even palm trees growing there. Impressed, he praised Reina for turning the place into a beautiful orchard. She explained that there wasn't enough fruit yet for everyone, but as he watched, she suddenly took a stance in front of a palm tree. With a loud shout, she punched the trunk. A few coconuts fell from above. Then, with a sharp kick, she sliced off the tops and caught them mid-air. To the coconut water, she added lemon juice and some ice to chill it. She poured the mix into jars, then served it in simple wooden cups. There was enough for everyone to have a share. As Hiel took a sip, he couldn't help but wonder how she had grown so strong. But once he tasted the drink, all he could think about was how refreshing it was. It was sweet, cool, and perfectly sour. Reina's eyes lit up as she heard his praise. Just then, Hiel heard Elvin's voice in the distance. Elvin was with Varys and several others. He was carrying something huge on his shoulders. When Hiel asked what it was, he also mentioned he was ready to restart mining. However, he couldn't ignore the strange, shell-like object Elvin had brought. Elvin proudly explained that it was the shell of a creature called a Satan shell, which he had just defeated at the back shore of the island. He showed off its tough body, saying it was so strong that even his axe couldn't leave a proper dent. When Hiel asked how he managed to beat it, Elvin said he simply forced it open, something only possible because of his incredible strength. As they opened the shell, Varys poured a strange organ into a tub. It released a thick, odd-looking liquid. Mappa, curious, dipped his finger in and gave it a lick. Right away, he fell onto his back and started shaking. With a mischievous grin, Varys said the liquid could be poisonous depending on how it was treated. But then he admitted it was just a joke. The only thing extracted from it was purple dye. Still, Hiel cast a recovery spell on Mappa just in case. From killer birds to Satan shells and even ancient golems, their enemies kept growing in number. To prepare, Hiel created an entire group of 14 new golems. Half of them were much larger than the others. Including his very first creation, there were 15 golems in total. 10 of them, numbers 6 through 15, were powered by magic stones. 2 of these used defensive magic. The rest were split among the 4 elements. 2 used ice, 2 fire, 2 lightning, and 2 wind magic. Hiel then noticed some goblins in a panic ringing the emergency bell from atop the defensive wall. They shouted that many Satan shells were invading from the one side where the walls hadn't been finished yet. When Hiel and the others rushed over, they saw more than 50 of those tough, spiky creatures climbing up the walls. Hiel asked Varys for details, and Varys said Satan shells could resist heat and cold but not lightning. Hiel wanted to test his new golems and asked Elvin to let him handle it. Elvin agreed but told him to call for help right away if things got bad. Hiel then asked Reina if she could use lightning magic. She said yes. They both climbed onto golem number 1, which lifted them with its arms and joined hands. From there, Hiel took command of his golem army. The Satan shells had already climbed over the wall by the time the group arrived. As the creatures charged at them, Hiel quickly ordered the 2 defensive golems to protect them. Golem number 6 and 7 followed without hesitation. Lightning flashed as Rhianna called down a thunderbolt, hitting the crawling monsters hard. The golems acted like moving shields for Elvin and Varys, while Hiel controlled their actions. 2 more golems, numbers 14 and 15, joined the fight. They were powered by lightning magic, and their attacks caused heavy damage. The Satan shells froze for a moment, then fought back by spraying a special liquid that could paralyze anyone it touched. The golems continued to defend the group without slowing down. From the top of golem number 1, Rhianna didn't waste any time or energy. She kept electrocuting the enemies, and thanks to the 2 golems guarding them, the team didn't take any serious damage. With everyone attacking together, the Satan shells were defeated quickly. Not wanting to waste the defeated creatures, Rihanna told the golems to carry them to the freezer, following Hiel's orders. All 15 golems began picking up the spiky creatures. Suddenly, Rihanna noticed one of the Satan shells was still moving. It was about to attack Hiel, who hadn't seen it. She jumped in front of him and took the hit herself. The poison made it hard for her to move. A clean strike from Elven killed the creature. Hiel, now safe, turned to thank Rihanna, only to see her lying on top of him covered in the poison. Embarrassed, he quickly used a healing spell on her and moved away. When he looked again, he was even more embarrassed to see her still sticky from the attack. He rushed off to get water to help clean her. On the way back, something shiny caught his eye inside one of the Satan shells. Looking closer, he found a pearl. A very rare discovery. Rihanna was amazed by how pretty it looked. Since Hiel didn't know what to do with it, he offered it to her as a gift. He explained that he didn't know its value, but Rihanna turned red and began stuttering. Flustered, she apologized and gave the pearl back before running away, claiming she couldn't yet. Hiel, left holding the pearl, had no idea why she rejected it. After spending the whole next day mining, Hiel told the other miners to take a break, but Fuller asked to keep working a bit longer. Seeing how serious she was, Hiel reminded her to at least eat on time. She agreed right away, since Rihanna's cooking was just too good to skip. Hiel left Golem number 1 to watch over things and report if anything went wrong. Fuller had a strong passion for mining, and with the golem there to help, their work became even more efficient. The day before, they had beaten many Satan shells, so their meals were mostly made from those spiky creatures. Mappa also started piling food on plates like never before. It seemed like the Satan shells had made their home nearby since they kept showing up on the shore. This turned into a steady supply of food, tough shells, and dye. Other things kept washing up on the shore from time to time, but what came next wasn't just blessings. At the start of the next day, Hiel saw the true beauty of a dye called Tyrian purple for the first time. Under Varys's guidance, a few goblins who worked with cloth made it using liquid taken from Satan shells. The quality was better than anything Hiel had ever seen. As they admired the color, they saw Elven walking toward them. They called him over to see it too. But something was wrong. Elven, who was usually cheerful, looked serious and didn't say a word. With a clenched fist, he asked Hiel to follow him to the coastline. His voice was firm and heavy. When they arrived, a crowd had already gathered near the edge. Lying there was a body, one that didn't look like a goblin. It had more defined muscles and tusks. It was an orc. Many of them stepped back, afraid. Elven explained that the orc had been caught in the embankment and pulled out of the water. But his voice now showed anger and disgust. The seal on the orc's clothes revealed that it belonged to the same tribe that had destroyed the Belden tribe's hometown. The goblins were scared, but one of them started kicking the orc's body in anger. The others quickly joined in. Elven asked them to stop, but they didn't listen. When Hiel looked to Elven and Varys for help, they stayed silent. Hiel knew he couldn't step in. The orcs were the sworn enemies of the Belden tribe, but someone else could and did. The princess of the Belden tribe stepped in herself, furious at the goblins' actions. She asked if their tribe had fallen so low that they would dishonor the dead. The goblins tried to defend themselves. They reminded her that these orcs had killed their friends and families. They even spoke of how the orcs had pinned her father, their king, to a wall with swords as a warning. Rihanna could feel their anger and fear, but she knew they couldn't let it control them. She said that since Hiel was the master of the island, only he could decide what would happen to anything or anyone that arrived there. Then, to show respect, Rihanna knelt before him and apologized on behalf of the goblins. Although he wasn't sure of himself, Hiel quietly thanked Rihanna. He walked forward, trying to stay strong as the leader of the island and the one responsible for his people. Standing in front of them, he admitted that their anger made sense, but he didn't want them to insult the dead. He bowed deeply and asked them to listen to a selfish request, to control their emotions. The goblins were shocked to see their master bow. They quickly begged him not to do so. Hiel then asked Varys to take care of the orc's burial. But as he looked into the distance, he noticed something troubling. It wasn't just one body. The riverbank in front of them was filled with corpses. One by one, they pulled in a total of 24 bodies. And they weren't only orcs. Among them were dog-like, two-legged creatures called kobolds, who were also longtime enemies of the goblins. With so many dead and injured, Hiel wondered if some kind of fight had broken out between them. Varys, on the other hand, questioned how they had even ended up in such a faraway place. Elven called for Hiel, and the two stepped away from the crowd. He explained that while everyone had wounds from battle, some of them had very strange and frightening injuries. Elven said these marks weren't caused by axes or swords, but by huge fangs, bigger than anything he had ever seen. One body was even worse. Half of it looked like it had been burned away by intense heat, hotter than anything fire magic could create. This made it clear to Elvin that they hadn't died from fighting each other. They were attacked by something much stronger. He didn't want to make any final guesses yet, but he knew they had to stay alert and watch out for armed ships. Elvin told Varys to handle the burials, while Elan and Rhienna were assigned to check and strengthen their defenses. Elvin searched through the wreckage for anything useful. Even though it felt wrong to go through the belongings of the dead, they didn't have much of a choice. Most of the items were either badly damaged or needed fixing. While doing this, Hiel suddenly heard a strange whimper. He looked around and asked Rhienna to help check, but they didn't see anything that could have made the sound. Then it happened again, this time coming from a crate that was shaking among the rubble. Rhienna tried to open it but couldn't. Hiel noticed that the crate was sealed with a magic lock. He used a spell to unlock it, and after a moment the seal broke. As he leaned in to check the inside, something fast jumped out and hit his face. He caught it just in time and saw that it was a small, white, fluffy puppy. The puppy squirmed and escaped from his hands. It climbed onto his head, then ran across his back as he tried to grab it again. The puppy finally stopped when it clung to the back of his head, and then started to shake. Hiel let out a noise when something wet ran down his back. The puppy had peed on his shirt. Rhienna laughed softly and gently picked it up. Hiel later realized that the little creature was a kobold child. Rhienna stroked it kindly. Even though kobolds were their enemies, she believed that children weren't to blame for anything. She hoped the others would feel the same. The next day when Hiel returned to the mine, a loud explosion sent rubble flying everywhere. Each day Mappa's equipment kept getting stronger, which made mining more dangerous. Hiel didn't know how to fight, nor did he understand what kind of enemy they were facing this time. So the best thing he could do was to keep mining. The materials he collected were needed to help protect the island. However, the number of magic stones he found started to drop. He still had enough for himself, but if he wanted to help increase Rhienna's magic power, or support the evolved Fully and Varys someday, he would definitely need more. While checking his inventory, Hiel noticed a strange item shaped like a walnut. It didn't have a name, and even Mr. Advisor couldn't identify it, which confused Hiel. When he took it outside, he was surprised to learn it wasn't a stone at all. It was actually a seed. Just then, Fulla ran toward him and asked him to follow her. Something was happening on the surface. General Elvin was trying to calm a crying puppy, but his serious expression only made things worse. Despite help from Spider Mama Terran and Mappa dancing with Maracas, nothing worked. The child kept crying. Fulla suddenly kicked Elvin in the back, realizing that his face was scaring the puppy even more. It reminded Elvin of a time when he had scared Full in the same way when she was little. Hiel walked up and gently asked Elvin to ease up. The puppy immediately stopped crying when it saw Hiel. It jumped off its bed, ran toward him, and climbed onto his face, happily licking him. Its tail wagged with excitement. Fully could tell the puppy had been waiting to see Hiel ever since it woke up. Rhienna, in her own way, added that the puppy might see Hiel as its parent. It even peed on him to prove the point. Varys explained that kobolds naturally bond strongly with others, like imprinting. Curious about the box Varys was working on, Hiel asked if there was anything inside. They soon discovered that the box had a hidden bottom that couldn't even be scratched with an orichalcum knife. Hiel handed the puppy to Rhienna and tried to break the seal again. This time it worked. The bottom of the box opened. Inside, they found a strange white diamond-shaped stone and 3 books. Each book was about the Tiberus tribe, one on their history, another on their techniques, and the last one on their sacred writings. Hiel started to wonder if the little puppy was from the Tiberus tribe too. Mr. Advisor identified the stone as a thought stone, something that could store thoughts. Elvin and Rhienna were confused but curious. Varys, however, looked serious and stayed silent. Before Hiel could ask anything, the thought stone in his hand began to glow brightly. The light only grew stronger. As he placed it on a table, the glowing thoughts took shape. Like a projector, the stone showed a hologram of a female kobold holding a staff. She had a strong presence, and it was clear she came from a noble family. Rhienna was stunned by her beauty. Then the hologram began to speak. The female kobold thanked them for opening the sealed chest. She introduced herself as Alamina, queen of the Tiberus tribe of kobolds. The puppy inside the box, she said, was her newborn child. Elvin recognized the name Tiberus and immediately felt uneasy, but things only became worse. Alhemina explained that her people were being chased by a creature from legend, the Leviathan. After being separated from the orcs during a chaotic event, they had fled to the sea, but even there the Leviathan followed them. Their weapons and magic were useless against it. Knowing her request might be too much, the queen asked anyone who found the message to raise her child as their own. To help with this, she had sent 2 strong warriors from her tribe to guard the chest, along with 3 books that outsiders were not allowed to read. Suddenly, panicked voices echoed through the hologram. People were begging the queen to escape. The image of Alhemina started to flicker, showing that her end was near. Before the message ended, she softly asked that her child be allowed to hear her final words. She looked at the hologram with a warm smile and said she would always love him. Then the thought stone went dark. The room fell silent. Pity and fear filled the air. Elvin only clicked his tongue. He scoffed at the Tiberius tribe for leaving their child to strangers. He pointed out that even the escorts they promised were missing. Rihanna quickly spoke up, warning him to be more careful with his words. But Elvin said nothing more. He turned and walked away to inform the others on guard. Hiel guessed that the Belden already knew about the Tiberius tribe and didn't get along with them. Fula, looking downcast, shared that they had been in constant wars over land. During one of those wars, her older brother and Elvin's first child had died. Hiel understood why the general felt bitter and couldn't trust easily, but he also respected the fact that Elvin didn't hold anything against the child. Fula made it clear that no matter how harsh a warrior her father was, he would never hate a child. Varys then explained that Elvin blamed himself for not being able to protect his son. Varys also shared that he had lost his younger brother to the Tiberius, yet he felt no hatred toward their small friend. Hiel then announced that he would take the child in as his own. No one disagreed, especially because the child's cuteness made it hard to say no. Still, Hiel had one concern. The child didn't have a name. Rhianna guessed that Alhemina might have done that on purpose, hoping the new parents would name him themselves. When Hiel asked her if she had any ideas, she gave it some thought and suggested the name Riel. Everyone agreed right away, and the child was named without any fuss. After the naming, Mr. Advisor officially recognized Riel as a tamed monster. That wasn't exactly what Hiel had in mind, but it didn't matter. Riel was going to live with them anyway. Fula soon noticed something funny. Rhianna had taken the Ri from her own name and the L from Hiel to create the name Riel. When everyone found out, Rhianna got flustered and the group laughed. But the mood quickly changed when Varys reminded Hiel of the serious threat they faced. Based on what Elvin had said about the deep wounds made by fangs, there was no doubt now. The Leviathan would soon be coming for them. The next morning, Hiel went with Mappa and the other blacksmiths to a quiet corner of the island. With Mappa's confirmation, he fired several bursts of flames at something while everyone watched from a safe distance. When the powerful flames faded, a shield made of orichalcum was left completely unscathed. One of the defensive golems had been holding it. The shield was already strong, but they also added a defensive spell to make it even better. Meanwhile, Elvin and Varys felt confident about the large weapons Mappa had built. These were made to fight off bigger enemies. Although they weren't sure if the threat was really coming, they still prepared for the worst. After all, anything strong enough to beat Alamina, known as a witch for her powerful magic and warriors, had to be extremely dangerous. The unknown enemy seemed as threatening as a leviathan. Just then, Riel climbed onto a wooden post. It started yapping loudly. When the others heard it, they could sense fear in its voice. The creature soon began to whine, clearly unable to climb back down. Elvin, feeling worried, decided to help. As he climbed the post, Riel used Elvin's head like a stepping stone and jumped down. Right after, Elvin fell down. Rhianna ran over and gently scolded Riel for causing trouble. Elvin asked how the creature even got there, since Rhianna had taken him to the fields. She explained that Riel was very playful. He would dig up seeds, eat other people's lunches, or chase butterflies. Varys commented that it wouldn't be surprising to see Riel walking on two legs soon, as kobold children grew up fast. Before Hiel could say anything, the word field reminded him of something. He quickly took out a strange seed from his inventory. Varys was confused but curious about its large size. Rhianna suddenly shouted a name, Yggdrasil. Both Hiel and Varys were shocked by how quickly she said it. Even Rhianna didn't understand where that word came from. They guessed that her farmer Crest might have given her special knowledge about plants. The word Yggdrasil reminded Varys of an old story. According to legend, Yggdrasil was a giant tree that gave blessings to all living things. Since they had already found other rare items like the Change Stone, Varys didn't want to ignore the possibility that the story might be true. Not long after, the quiet part of the island was finally reached by Hiel. This time, he had dug a tunnel all the way through the Sheol Reef. It was something they needed to do, and also a chance to expand. They were once planning to turn the reclaimed land into a farming area. After everything that had happened recently, the area had turned into a kind of defensive base. Hiel had enough materials to take over the new shoreline too. But since his retrieval ability only worked inside the cave, he asked Taryn and the Fluffy kids to help carry the dirt back in. He had done something similar before, so this time it was easier. Soon, he turned the rough rocky shore into a working port. While Hiel worked on planting Yggdrasil, Rhianna added some flower seeds from her hometown to make the place look nicer. Hiel thanked her for the kind act. Just then, Mappa quietly walked over and crouched near the spot where the special seed had been planted. Rhianna looked surprised when they saw that the seed had already sprouted. When Hiel asked, Rhianna said she hadn't used the sunstone, which could have helped it grow faster. Mappa shook his head too, saying he hadn't done anything. Still unsure, Hiel asked Rhianna to use the sunstone this time. As soon as the sunstone released its energy, the small sprout turned into a medium-sized plant. It gave off a strange feeling as it kept growing, but to Hiel's shock, it didn't stop there. The small branches quickly became huge, stretching out and covering the sky above them. The tree kept growing fast, and before they knew it, it became dangerous. The group started running away. Hiel held Mappa tightly, but Mappa tripped on one of the fast-growing roots. The roots wrapped around him and he disappeared into the thick plants. They all shouted for him, but a sudden blast from the roots threw them back just in time to avoid being trapped too. Even from the far side of the island, everyone could see the giant tree towering over everything. It was even taller than the reef itself. The tiny seed Hiel had once held was gone, lost in the thick leaves and branches. The tree, now fully grown, stood high and proud. Yggdrasil had come to life, living up to its name as the legendary tree. Worried about their legendary blacksmith, Hiel rushed toward the tree when Rihanna noticed Mappa's hand slowly sticking out from the branches. Carefully, they began to climb the tree, treating it like a steep mountain. As they got closer, they saw that Mappa had managed to keep his head above the surface so he could breathe. But before they could help him, they realized the hand wasn't asking for help. It was gently telling them to let him stay. He seemed comfortable inside the Tree of Blessings. Mappa gave a small nod, showing he wanted to rest there a little longer. Rihanna noticed the fresh scent of the forest all around them, flowing through the tree like veins. Hiel and Rihanna also sensed a strong energy inside. It felt like a divine force slowly spreading across the island. They both knew this tree called Yggdrasil was full of secrets, ones they would leave for Varus to uncover later. Little Riel ran ahead with excitement. As Hiel tried to call him back, Rihanna suggested they explore the paradise a bit more. Surrounded by soft winds and green leaves, she felt like she had returned to a place from her past and wanted to enjoy it for a while longer. Riel gave a cheerful bark and Hiel couldn't say no. They watched the small child dash forward while Rihanna followed with strong, graceful leaps. Along the way, she helped heal small wounds and guided them upward. When they finally reached the highest branches, the view of the island below took their breath away. It was stunning. They stood there, enjoying the peaceful moment together. But as Hiel looked out toward the sea, he narrowed his eyes. He couldn't see any ships, especially ones that might bring danger from his kingdom. Rihanna noticed an uncomfortable silence come over Hiel. Although a bit unsure, she gently asked how he ended up alone on the island. When he didn't respond for a while, Rihanna apologized, thinking she had asked something she shouldn't have. Hiel sat down on a tree stump and let out a sigh. He hadn't talked about his past until now. Rihanna and Little Riel quietly sat across from him, waiting. Finally, Hiel shared that he had been expelled from his kingdom because he was seen as too weak. Rihanna was shocked, especially after witnessing the amazing things he had done so far. But she didn't yet know how painful his past truly was. Back in the royal capital, Hiel often visited a forgotten part of the palace, the old servants' quarters. It was a quiet, abandoned place. He went there whenever he had time to read. Even though it was lonely, it felt better than facing the harsh looks from people in the palace who hated his weakness. One day, while exploring, he heard a small noise coming from behind an old barrel. When he peeked past it, he found a small creature, an imp, with horns and tiny wings, screaming at him. Hiel was shocked to find a monster hiding in the capital. He tried to back away, but the creature jumped at him. He raised his arms to protect himself, but the attack never came. The imp was chained to a thick post. It was badly hurt and bleeding. Setting his book aside, Hiel slowly reached out. He wondered if he could use magic to heal it, but sadly he didn't know how. Over the next few days, he kept coming back. He brought food from the castle and did his best to free the chains around its neck, though he always failed. Despite this, he looked forward to every visit. The imp, whom he named Lopez, became his only friend. Spending time with Lopez made Hiel feel more human, more alive. Even though he wasn't good at anything, he tried learning magic, hoping to one day help Lopez escape. The creature was still dirty and wounded, but Hiel gently patted his head, holding on to the promise that he would set him free. One day, laughter echoed through the abandoned quarters, an area where no one was supposed to be. Hiel froze. Voices followed, and it was clear more than one person was coming. He quickly hid behind a corner. Lopez also tried to hide behind the post. From the edge of his vision, Hiel recognized someone. The person had golden hair, pale skin, and a face that looked almost like a girl's. It was Orin, the 18th Prince of Sanfales and Hiel's younger brother. Orin loudly remarked in surprise that the weak little creature was still alive. A small tornado spun toward Lopez. He noticed it and tried to run, but the chains held him back. Orin, the one behind it, called out about how important it was to practice being accurate. He was joined by several proud students from noble families. Together, they used Lopez as a target for their magic training. Spell after spell flew at Lopez. He tried to hide or find a safe place, but the attacks didn't stop. The students, along with some top members of the Magic Academy, kept casting magic on him. Orin led the assault, hurting Lopez just enough to keep him alive. Around the corner, Hiel watched in fear. He was too weak to stop them, but thinking about the pain his friend must be feeling, he decided to act. He ran toward Lopez, calling his name and apologizing. Even though he had tried his best to care for the young boy the past few days, his magic wasn't strong enough to heal even small wounds. Things were getting worse. If this kept going and if Hiel couldn't heal him or break the chains, Lopez would die. Oren and the others were surprised when Hiel showed up. Lopez, hurt and scared, moved behind him, shaking with fear. Hiel asked Oren for a favor. Holding up the hand with his useless magic mark, he begged him to let the boy go. Oren gave him a cold look. Then he raised his hand and one of his friends handed him a pair of white gloves. Hiel heard the sound of footsteps as Oren walked closer. He was too scared to look up. Oren slapped Hiel hard with his gloved hand and looked at him with disgust. He was angry that Hiel, despite being royalty, begged to free a monster. Oren raised his hand again and cast a strong fire spell, warning Hiel to move aside or be burned along with his powerless friend. Even without magic, Hiel could sense the danger in the spell. He dropped to the ground, placed his head low, and begged Oren to stop. Oren pulled back the spell, looking disappointed. Then, to Hiel's surprise, Oren agreed to let it go, saying he was tired of how things were done anyway. Hiel quickly turned to Lopez, smiling with relief. But his joy turned into shock when Oren ordered him to break the seal that was holding his friend. Confused, Hiel looked up. Oren told him that with his permission, Hiel was free to do what he wanted, even release Lopez. But Oren's eyes turned cold. He said that, unlike Hiel, he couldn't allow a monster to run wild in the capital. He gave Hiel 10 seconds. Before Hiel could speak or do anything, Oren had already started counting down. By the time Hiel understood what was happening, only 8 seconds were left. Panicking, Hiel tried to break the seal. People around them watched, entertained by his struggle. Lopez saw Hiel's desperate face and gave him one last smile. He seemed to know his life was about to end. As the countdown hit 0, Oren smiled. In the next moment, Hiel found himself staring at the burned body of his friend. Smoke filled the air. Hiel hoped just for a moment that Lopez might have survived, but there was no smile waiting for him. Lopez was gone. Oren walked away, sighing at how useless Hiel had been. Hiel realized then that Oren had planned it all from the start. Filled with grief and rage, Hiel tried to punch him, but a magic shield blocked the attack before it could land. The pain of losing Lopez wouldn't go away. But Oren, still in a cold voice, asked if Hiel really thought he could touch him. When Oren turned around, his blood-red eyes sent a wave of fear through Hiel's heart. After that, Hiel ended up in the medical ward. But somehow he still managed to walk back to that horrible place. He gathered the small amount of ashes that were left of his friend and placed them in a vial that had been hanging from his neck the whole time. Holding it tightly, the pain hit him again. He blamed himself for being foolish enough to promise his friend freedom when he couldn't even save him as he died right in front of him. But unlike what Hiel thought of himself, Rihanna didn't see him as powerless. Whether it was helping the Belden tribe, Riel, or even Lopez, she knew that Hiel had always done his best to help others. His sad past deeply affected her. When he handed her a handkerchief, he wondered to himself why he had shared such a sad story. He questioned if it was because he just wanted someone to listen. But when he saw Rihanna's kind smile and heard Riel's joyful bark, he realized he was wrong. He had simply wanted to tell Rihanna specifically. Together, they walked deeper into the heart of Yggdrasil, where another surprise waited for them. A wide meadow filled with white flowers and soft green grass. Rihanna felt proud that the flowers from her hometown made the place even more beautiful. Riel ran happily through the petals, barking and wagging his tail. Understanding how important Lopez was to Hiel, Rihanna gently said that even if he couldn't erase his regrets, he should remember that he wasn't alone. Hiel now had people who cared about him. He had a family to lean on. The cheerful group running through the field. As Rihanna gave him a soft smile, Hiel felt some of the pain in his heart ease. He quietly thanked her with all his heart. After Varys carefully studied it, they discovered that Yggdrasil's sap made a great sweetener. Its leaves could be used to make salves or regular tea. However, they had to be careful. Eating too much could cause someone to pass out. The branches were surprisingly light but strong, making them perfect for holding the orichalcum tools they made. Mappa quickly crafted several pickaxe handles from them. But that wasn't the only surprise. When Hiel called for a break later, Full quietly said she wasn't tired at all. They soon realized the tree also helped reduce fatigue. The legendary tree became a real gift for everyone living in Sheol Reef. Day by day, their lives slowly got better. One night, when Hiel was sleeping peaceful, a sharp, loud sound suddenly woke him up. He woke up to find Riel crying in his sleep. Hiel gently rubbed his back to calm him. Moments later, the others who heard the crying rushed into the room. Rihanna tried to comfort Riel, softly running her hands through his fur. Hiel sat up quickly when he noticed something strange. Riel's left eye was glowing. When he looked closer, he was shocked to see a rough outline of a crest forming. Then, the eye burst with a bright light, filling the entire room. They all covered their eyes, but as their vision adjusted, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, they saw a violent sea. Waves crashed hard and a broken ship groaned in the storm. Kobold bodies floated lifeless in the water. Then a crescent-shaped staff rose into view. Alamina, the queen of the Tiberus kobolds, appeared and cast a large shield spell in front of her. but a powerful blast of energy smashed through it, destroying her hand and the staff in a flash. She gave one last look at her baby and cast a spell to lock him away safely. A giant serpent appeared in the mist. With no magic left, she leapt at it using only her claws in a final hopeless attempt to protect her child. Everyone who saw the vision fell to the floor, shaken by the terrible scene. They all realized they had shared a vision with Hiel. Just seeing the serpent left fear in their hearts. As little Hiel whimpered from what he had seen, Hiel braced himself again. There was no doubt now. The mythical Leviathan was truly coming for them. When Varus saw Hiel's crest, he recognized it as the crest of clairvoyance. He didn't know much about how it worked, but he had heard it was known as the all-seeing eye of God. If that was true, then what they had just witnessed was Hiel's clairvoyant vision, a memory from when he said goodbye to his mother. That vision had been shared with everyone on the island. Terrified by the image of the Leviathan, people rushed out of their rooms. They couldn't believe such a monster existed. In fear, they begged their leader Hiel to do something. But the problem was too big for Hiel to handle right away. With so many people depending on him, he couldn't afford to give them false hope. The panic was growing stronger by the minute. Suddenly, a loud roar made everyone go quiet. Elvin stepped up and took control. Frustrated by the panic in his tribe, he reminded them that they had already faced and survived the impossible before. If they stood together and followed their leader, there was nothing they couldn't face. After clearing up the confusion and showing support for Hiel, he stood with Rihanna, Varus, and even little Hiel. Hiel took a deep breath and told everyone that even if they couldn't defeat the Leviathan, they were bound to face it eventually. So they had to prepare. He asked for their strength because with everyone working together, they just might have a chance. The dark clouds that formed the day before brought rain the next morning, making their situation even worse. Even though Hiel had motivated his group, he quickly gave up on using attack magic, especially after the powerful witch Alamena had already failed. When he asked if their orichalcum weapons might help, Mappa grew anxious and said it was impossible too. Varus was quiet at first, but then he spoke up and shared one small hope. Because the Leviathan was so massive, it wouldn't be able to reach the lowest part of the cave they were in. With that in mind, they decided to use the chamber where the ancient golems were found as a shelter for the refugees. A second freezer would also be built nearby to store supplies. There was still the danger that the giant sea serpent might destroy the island itself instead of trying to enter the cave, which Elvin feared. But Hiel had a plan. Along with the Terran family, Fula and Shell, he headed to the deepest part of the mining caverns. He was ready to rely on what he did best, mining. Since the island had grown a lot since they first arrived, he believed they might find new materials underground. They had already discovered many strange items on the Sheol Reef, and Hiel hoped they might find something strong enough to fight the Leviathan. Hiel couldn't promise success, but the others believed in him. Rihanna suggested he bring little Hiel along. The boy smiled when he heard his name. Rihanna explained that, even if Hiel couldn't control his clairvoyance yet, it might help them at the right moment. Hiel eagerly climbed into Hiel's backpack, but when they checked on him, there was no response. They opened the bag and found Hiel fast asleep, no longer as excited as before. Hiel laughed, while the rest of the team got ready to dig. The entire island worked together on their plan to stop the Leviathan. Thanks to the thick lumber around the Yggdrasil, they had enough wood to build stronger defenses and add new walls on top of the old ones. Suddenly, Hiel woke up and squirmed to get out of Hiel's backpack. Seeing his urgency, Hiel wondered if Hiel had sensed something underground. But Hiel just needed to pee. Hiel could be a bit moody when it came to working, but his clairvoyance helped them see through solid rock. He often led them to regular ores, but during the first week of digging, they didn't find anything new. A few weeks later, Hiel was desperately digging at the ground with his small paws. The others noticed, but there was a big problem. Their tools and maps didn't show anything in that spot. Digging there could cause their section or even the whole cave collapse. Still, little Hiel kept going. Hiel decided to trust Hiel and give it a try. He made one careful strike. That single hit caused the ground to collapse, taking Hiel with it. Fula shouted in fear as he fell. Luckily, Hiel landed on a smooth rock ledge that wasn't too far down. It didn't hurt. He looked around and saw a new cave hidden below. As his eyes adjusted to the dark, he was shocked. Right in front of him lay a huge Artmore, with a sword much taller than the armor itself. There was a hole in the chest where a heartstone should have been, which meant it was once a golem. Fula grew nervous, remembering their past encounter with golems. Hiel looked closely and noticed something. The armor was made of orichalcum, but the giant sword had a silver color, showing it was even rarer. Curious, Hiel hit the sword with his pickaxe. The impact sent strong vibrations through the cave, up the stairs, and all the way to the forge until it reached someone's ears. Before Hiel could react, Mappa appeared behind him, out of breath. They were surprised by how fast he arrived, but what shocked them more was how Mappa acted. His eyes widened as he saw the sword. Then he dropped to his knees, then all fours, as if bowing to something sacred. While everyone watched in confusion, Mappa kept bowing again and again. Then, without a word, he picked up the sword and rushed out of the cave. It was clear he urgently needed to take it to the workshop, so they followed close behind. Shortly after, the forge burned brightly as the blacksmiths added more coal to keep the fire going. Several machines were working, and Mappa moved around wildly, trying to get the blacksmith's attention. They figured out that he was upset about the fire not being hot enough to melt the sword. Rihanna walked up to them, curious about the sudden noise. When Hiel saw her, he suddenly understood what Mappa was trying to say. Tarab had already set up 2 hammocks with his webs across the ceiling, and in the middle of the room was the crucible they had all been worried about. Hiel and Rihanna planned to increase the furnace's heat using their magic. Once the right temperature was reached, the others slowly lowered the sword into the center of the flames. Mappa kept a close eye on the process as the metal melted and flowed out of the furnace through a duct. He took a part of the metal to work with, while the rest was turned into ingots. When Hiel took a small sample, Mr. Advisor said it was mithril, the hardest metal known, strong enough to kill gods. He suggested the gods might have once owned it and were now paying the price for losing it. Hiel was shocked by the discovery. For the first time, they might actually have a chance, and it was all thanks to little Riel. With Mappa's skill, they could now try to create their strongest weapon. A few weeks later, the defensive wall was finished too, making their island look more like a fortress. They knew it still wasn't enough to face a legendary beast, but the shale reef was finally ready for its first great battle. One night, as he was heading back to his quarters, Hiel heard strange sounds coming from his room. When he got closer, he saw Elvin speaking with Riel. Before he could ask what was going on, Rihanna quietly walked up behind him and gently asked him not to interrupt. Little Riel looked up when the general called for him. He apologized for speaking badly about his mother before. As a proud warrior, he now admitted that his mother had been a strong warrior herself after seeing the vision. He rubbed Riel's head and promised to prove it one day by avenging her. Hiel and Rihanna felt at peace now that things were finally settled. As Elvin accepted Riel's promise, the little one playfully pawed at his eye. Elvin suddenly screamed in pain, holding his eye. It made things a bit awkward, but in the end, everyone felt relieved. A heavy burden had been lifted from their hearts. The next morning, a watchguard suddenly rang the alarm. Recognizing the signal, Hiel rushed out of his room. When he reached the shore, Elvin was already there, standing and watching. He didn't react to the warning, even though several ships were heading toward them. Varys handed Hiel a telescope created by Mappa. When Hiel looked through it, he saw a familiar but threatening symbol. The ships belonged to the remaining members of the Orc tribe, the same ones who had destroyed the Belden tribe. Elvin had no plans to let them land on the island. As they kept watching, the enemy ships fired several shots into the water. They weren't sure what the orcs were aiming at. Then Riel suddenly started barking loudly. At that moment, his magical crest activated and a heavy pressure filled the air. Hiel also sensed a huge amount of magic energy. The ocean swelled and everyone stared in shock. A massive wave exploded as one of the orc ships was torn apart. From beneath the sea, a huge serpent with dark scales rose up. Its roar shook the air, and its body stretched high into the sky. The godlike beast had arrived, and it sent the sea into chaos. Cannons fired their shots, and the cannonballs flew high above the sea before hitting the legendary sea beast. The hits did nothing because its scales were too tough to break. The beast faced the last ship on the water and began to attack it. From the reef, Hiel and the others watched with worry. Someone struck the bell with a hand axe, and the hand axe flew back to Elvin. He told everyone to stop standing around and get ready for battle by taking the positions they had practiced. He also made it clear to Hiel that he was not doing this to save orcs. He said it was better to attack the Leviathan while it was distracted. Hiel agreed and told Full to give the order to move everyone into the cave. While carrying Riel, Full asked him and the rest not to die. Hiel and the others showed confident and determined smiles. Varys then told the goblins to prepare the heavy ballista. The goblins pulled several mechanisms, and a large opening appeared on the concrete reef. A massive ballista rose from inside it. The arrowhead on top was made of mithril, and Mappa had poured his whole effort into making it. Elvin believed it could pierce anything. The goblins aimed the ballista at the Leviathan by following Elvin's instructions. As the Leviathan moved closer to the orc's ship, Elvin gave the signal to fire. The goblins pulled the lever and released the mithril arrow. It flew toward the Leviathan, but the huge sea beast noticed it and twisted its body to dodge it at the last moment. Everyone was shocked. Hiel could not believe it had dodged so quickly, even with its giant body. Elvin said they could still do it, and that the hail of cannonballs did not affect the creature. It dodged their arrowhead on instinct, which showed they could bring it down if they landed a real hit. The sea beast then turned its attention to the reef and rushed toward them. Elvin warned that it was coming straight for them and told everyone to load the next shot. Hiel said he would hold it back with his golems and asked Rihanna to prepare her magic. He ordered 2 golems to use ice magic and the other 2 to use wind magic. When these 2 types of magic combined, Hiel and his golems released a spell called Mega Blizzard. The attack rushed toward the sea beast. The Leviathan kept charging and did not slow down. Varys said magic really did not work on it. Even so, the water under the creature froze because of the spell. Hiel said this was enough. If the water around it froze, he believed it would not be able to move. The Leviathan soon stopped completely and glared at them. Hiel then noticed magic gathering along its scales and moving toward its mouth. He quickly ordered 2 of his golems to raise their shields at an angle so they would not take the attack head-on but instead redirect it. The Leviathan finished charging and fired a railgun-like breath. It shot toward the reef, but the shield blocked and spread out the blast. Hiel and his golems held their ground as the reef shook. The others ducked while Rhianna called out in worry as Hiel tried his best to protect the reef from the attack. The Leviathan finally ended its breath attack. The blast had scattered after hitting the shield and exploded far behind the reef. Hiel dropped to his knees along with his fallen and broken golems. At the same time, the Leviathan kept moving toward the reef. Rhianna told Elvin to prepare the heavy ballista, and he had been waiting for that moment. Hiel saw the sea beast rushing at them without fear. He believed it felt sure that it could dodge an arrow even at such a close range. The huge ballista then released its shot. Everyone held their breath. The arrow pierced through the monster's throat. Rhianna had cast a hiding spell on the arrow, making it invisible. Everyone cheered at their first clean hit. Elvin warned them to stay calm since it was only one strike. The Leviathan tried to dive back into the water, but it suddenly stopped when it felt something pulling on it. The invisible arrow was connected to a special rope made from spider silk and steel wire. Everyone held onto the rope and turned the mechanism attached to it. Hiel ordered 5 of his golems to move. Their hands shot out of the water and wrapped around the sea beast. All 5 golems rose from the sea and worked together to keep the Leviathan still. The monster struggled, and it was strong enough to drag the golems with it. The gears linked to the rope also began to break. Hiel shouted that they could not hold on any longer. The goblins confirmed that the next arrow was ready. Elvin told them to fire at the Leviathan's head and end it. But at that moment, Hiel's golems began to fall apart. Sea stalkers were crawling over their bodies and tearing them down little by little. Varys explained that these parasitic creatures usually clung to giant sea beasts and had been hiding behind the Leviathan's scales. One of Hiel's golems collapsed completely. The goblin archers started shooting arrows at the sea stalkers. More of the same creatures were climbing the walls, and the goblins fired again and again to stop them from getting any higher. ChatGPT said, at that moment the horns on the Leviathan's back began to glow. Hiel said it was different from the heat ray from earlier. The horns kept glowing until they all shot out from the sea beast's back and flew toward the reef. Hiel told everyone to stay behind him and formed a barrier to protect them from the attack. Rhianna, who supported him, struggled to keep the barrier steady. Hiel asked her to hold on a little longer. They stayed firm until the artillery stopped. When the dust faded, Hiel and the others saw the Leviathan's tail swinging toward them. The monster smashed the front walls of the reef with the power of its tail strike. The attack shook the whole reef and even the underground area where the other goblins had evacuated. They cried in fear when they heard the loud sound. The elderly tried to calm the young ones and told them it would end soon. A child asked his mother if they would lose their home again. The mother tried to comfort him and said that Hiel and the others would defeat the monster. The sea beast's attack was so strong that it sent Hiel flying. Shell caught him in time with his soft, slimy body. After Hiel recovered, he noticed the broken pieces of his golems. He felt frustrated because they had destroyed themselves to protect him. He called out to Elva, Varys, Mappa, Terran, and Rhianna, but everywhere he looked was covered with piles of rubble. The only creatures still moving above the ruins were the sea stalkers. They crawled toward Hiel while the Leviathan glared from afar. Hiel realized things would turn bad if the sea stalkers got past him. He used thunder magic to paralyze the ones in front, but after a short while they stood up again as if nothing had happened. He could feel his strength fading. He raised his shield to protect himself as the sea stalkers swarmed him. He told Shell to escape. At that moment, someone leaped over his head and began cutting down the sea stalkers. The monsters fell apart in an instant. Hiel was shocked to see Rhianna alive. She said she would not let the creatures harm him. Hiel felt relieved that she was safe. Rhianna confirmed she was fine and asked how he was doing. Right then, many arrows shot out from nowhere and rained down on the sea stalkers. Hiel looked behind him and saw the others safe. Some of his golems had managed to protect everyone from being buried. The group began digging their way out of the rubble. Elvin led the charge and urged everyone to follow their princess. The group along with the golems worked together to clear the sea stalkers that had climbed onto the reef. Elvin apologized for arriving late. Hiel said he was simply glad they were all safe. Suddenly, the sea beast crushed the golems that were holding it down. It used its breath attacks and smashed them with its body. After breaking free, it turned its attention back to Hiel and the others. Varys could not believe the giant golems were defeated that easily. Hiel told everyone they would use the other plan they had discussed. Rhianna said it was too dangerous. Hiel agreed but said it was their best chance now that the Leviathan was close to the shore. Rhianna then asked for his hand. She held it tight and their hands glowed. She said she only had a little magic power left, but she was giving all of it to him. She told him to make sure he defeated the sea beast. Hiel promised he would. At that moment, the Leviathan gathered magic power in its mouth. However, something shot toward its open mouth. Its charging attack was stopped, and its mouth blew apart. Hiel then began taunting the monster. The back of the Leviathan glowed again, showing that its thorns were ready to launch for another attack. While riding on Terran's back, Hiel avoided the stream of thorns flying toward him. The Leviathan chased him without caring about the sea stalkers crushed under its huge body. Hiel told Terran to give everything he had and run toward the place they planned to reach. Rihanna and the others could only watch and trust him. Elvin said he could still help and started pulling the heavy ballista out of the rubble. Varys said it was useless because the winch was broken and they could not pull back the rope anymore. Elvin reminded them that their leader was out there risking his life, and a warrior of the Belden tribe like him could not sit still. He used all his strength until the ballista finally shifted. Mappa also gave his strength and helped Elvin pull the ballista free. Meanwhile, Hiel and Tyran were trapped by the Leviathan. They thought they would be finished, but cannonballs suddenly struck the sea beast from somewhere far away. Hiel realized they came from the orcs. While the Leviathan was distracted, an arrowhead struck its left eye. Elvin and Mappa had managed to operate the heavy ballista by themselves. Hiel then told Terran to fly. The spider fired its sticky thread at the sea beast's body and swung past it. Hiel felt it was the perfect moment, so he raised his hand. He signaled Fula, who was waiting underground with Riel. She instructed everyone to begin. She and Terran's children hit the underground pillars, causing the ground above to collapse. The collapse opened a huge hole, and the Leviathan fell into the underground caverns. Hiel said they had prepared this plan in case the heavy ballista was not enough. They had dug a cave under the reclaimed land and now destroyed the pillars that supported the surface, all to pull the Leviathan down. Hiel then revealed his weapon, Mappa's greatest creation, the mithril ice axe. His skill, Cave King, activated and told him he had gained a mining tool. It asked if he wanted to mine. Hiel then controlled the rocks and sent them flying toward the Leviathan. Seeing the boulders coming, the sea beast fired a heat ray to destroy them along with Hiel. But Hiel had raised his shield in time to protect himself. He then ordered his skill to smash whatever stood in front of him. The Cave King optimized his mining power. Hiel struck the Leviathan's head with the full force of the Cave King, and the mining tool made from God-killer metal. Everyone held their breath. In the end, Hiel's attack pierced through the sea beast's head and shattered it like a mined stone. The crack that started on the sea beast's head quickly spread across its whole body. Hiel felt it was a direct hit. The goblins saw the massive Leviathan finally breaking apart, and they cheered because they believed the legendary creature had been defeated. Hiel joined their celebration for a moment. However, the Leviathan was still alive. It released a deafening roar that shook the entire cavern. The goblins thought it was making its final cry. Hiel took the roar head on. Even with his barrier, the sound grew stronger inside the cavern and caused heavy damage to him. He was lucky that he had been tied to a rope because his body soon went limp. The Leviathan then fell and died at the bottom of the cavern. Varys noticed that the cavern had started to collapse. Elvin instructed Terran to pull Hiel up. Rihanna could not watch any longer and leaped into the cavern without hesitation. She called to Terran, and the spider shot out another thread for her to hold. Rihanna swung toward Hiel and grabbed him. She urged him to keep holding on because they would escape soon. Hiel warned her to run since he believed she would not make it while carrying him. Rihanna refused to leave him behind and kept pushing forward through the falling debris. At that moment, a wolf appeared out of nowhere. Rihanna and Hiel were too shocked to respond. The wolf grabbed them both and ran along the cavern walls with quick and steady movements. While they held onto its back, Hiel felt confused about the wolf's identity. A larger boulder suddenly dropped toward them, but another wolf jumped in and shattered the massive rock, clearing their path as they fled from the collapsing cavern. As they reached the surface, Hiel thanked the wolves. After seeing how Hiel had defeated the Leviathan, the wolves said that there was a true hero among humans. When Hiel and Rihanna looked more closely, they realized the wolves were actually kobolds. The two kobolds talked among themselves and said they could sense the scent of their highness on Hiel and the others. Hiel then understood who they were. The black-snouted kobold apologized and said they had urgent business. He asked if a box with a baby kobold had been washed onto the island. At that moment, Elvin and the others rushed over to check on Hiel and Rihanna. Elvin was shocked when he saw the kobolds. The kobolds greeted Elvin and Varys and said it had been a while. They had heard that the Belden tribe was forced out of its land. Varys told Hiel that these two were Ash and Heine from the Tiberus tribe and that they were most likely the ones Queen Alhemina had trusted to guard Riel. Since they had received word from their queen, they believed what they were looking for was on the island. Riel then came running while being chased by Fuleb. The kobolds were shocked when they saw Riel. The kobolds dropped to their knees right away. They felt relieved to see her safe. They apologized because they failed to protect her, which they believed was the greatest mistake of their lives. Riel wondered what they meant. Elvin asked how they reached the island. Ash said it happened through a strange series of events. The lifeboat they rowed was sunk by the Leviathan, and they lost sight of their princess. They drifted for days until an orc pirate named Camus from the Corvus tribe rescued them. At that moment, a goblin reported that a boat from the pirate ship was coming toward them. Elvin told everyone not to shoot unless he gave a signal. He asked Ash why this was happening since he knew they were at war. Ash suggested meeting Camus first. Their ship was damaged and it would be hard to sail again. The last attack also used up most of their ammunition. He said it would be easy to take revenge now. Ash reminded them that they were trusting enemies with their lives. The goblins and Hiel stayed silent for a moment. Soon after, Hiel and the others went to greet the orcs and introduced himself as the Lord of the Reef. Camus, the leader of the Corvus tribe, also introduced himself. He said the earlier battle was surprising, but seeing an island filled with monsters ruled by a human was even more surprising. The orc stood tall before Hiel with a steady and dignified air. Hiel thought Camus looked huge even for an orc. Camus then noticed the large goblin among them and assumed he was El, the leader of the Belden tribe. Elven corrected him and said it was now Elven. He reminded Camus that they had saved the orcs, but they had not forgotten that the orcs destroyed their hometown. He asked what the orcs planned to offer to settle the score. Holding his sword, Camus said that meeting the Belden tribe like this must have been fate. The goblins prepared for a fight, but Camus simply lowered his sword. As the leader of his tribe, he asked them to spare his people and offered his own life in return. He removed his hat and knelt in submission. Hiel and the others were shocked. Camus said he would take full responsibility for what his tribe had done. In exchange for his life, he asked them to spare his tribe at least until they finished repairing their ship. Elven could see that Camus had already made up his mind as their leader. Full looked at her father with worry. One of Camus' followers then stepped forward and told them to wait, saying it was not their leader's fault. He tried to say something about a traitor. Camus told him to stay silent, and angrily asked if he wanted to shame him even more. The orc said he could not stand by and watch him die. Hiel asked what he meant by a traitor, but Elven angrily told them to be quiet. This shocked the orcs. Hiel said that no matter what Camus planned to do, he still wanted to know the truth. The orc looked worried as he explained that there was an orc named Claude, the second in command, who had betrayed them. Claude waited until their boss left for an expedition, then targeted their main base and stole part of their fleet. Claude often complained that the boss was too soft and that the Corvus tribe should chase more power, fame, and fortune. It was frustrating because many people supported him. Camus rushed back as soon as he heard the news, but Claude had already run wild with the Corvus fleet and banner. This meant that Claude was the one who attacked the Belden and Tiberius tribes. Ash then explained that a Leviathan appeared in the middle of their naval battle and destroyed Claude's fleet. Hiel remembered the bodies that washed up on the island. Varys said they belonged to Claude's faction. Ash added that Camus, who had been chasing Claude, ended up saving them. He thought it was strange that the Corvus tribe, known for being chivalrous pirates, suddenly attacked other tribes without a reason. Still, Camus said that knowing the truth did not change anything. The breaking of his tribe was his own fault, and he believed he had stained the flag passed down by his ancestors. He said he would carry the responsibility as their leader. Hiel stayed silent, but Elven did not. He grabbed Camus' sword and said their homes would not have been attacked if Camus had kept his people together. After pulling the sword from its sheath, Elven asked Camus if he truly meant what he said about taking responsibility with his life. Elven then said that being put down by someone like him would be fitting. Hiel tried to stop him, and Full shouted at her father. Elven swung the sword and stabbed. Everyone held their breath. The sword only struck the ground. Elven told Camus to take it. As the general of the Belden tribe, he challenged the leader of the Corvus tribe to a duel. This shocked Camus. The two fighters stood in the open space while everyone else watched and held their breaths. Hiel felt worried about the duel. He knew Elven was strong, but his opponent was the leader of the orcs. He believed Elven should at least use a shield to protect himself, but Rhianna stopped him, which made Hiel even more anxious. Camus took his stance and showed he was ready to offer his head to them. Even so, he had sworn on his sword that he would not give it up easily in a duel. Elven held his hand axes and prepared himself, promising in his own mind that he would make Camus' head fall in an instant. Hiel and the others watched with tense hearts. After a long moment of silence, Elven's hand and Camus' foot moved at the same time. Elven threw one of his hand axes, but Camus dodged it. Elven pulled the hand axe back with a string and tried to attack again, but Camus moved fast enough to avoid it. When Elven tried to pull the weapon back once more, he failed. Camus used this opening to strike with speed and strength, forcing Elven to let go of his weapon. Hiel was shocked by how fast they moved. He could not even follow what was happening. Elven then took a firm stance with his remaining hand axe, but he already had small wounds on his face and arm. Camus moved in again and claimed in his own thoughts that no one had ever avoided his sword this much. Elven still managed to dodge, but his other cheek ended up slightly cut. Rhianna watched with growing amazement as she saw how fast, sharp, flexible, and unpredictable Camus was. She understood how skilled he truly was. Full stood nearby, worried for her father, who was starting to struggle to fight back. Elven pulled back his other hand axe and sent it toward Camus from behind. Camus stayed calm and easily turned the attack aside, sending the hand axe back toward Elven. The sudden reversal shocked Elven. The duel grew tense as everyone watched, waiting for the final moment. Camus did not expect what happened next. Elven knocked away the returning hand axe, then stopped Camus' sword by letting it stab into his own hand so he could grab Camus' arm. With that move, Camus' sword techniques lost their strength, and Elven believed he would finally break through. Camus refused to give in. He seized the hand that held Elven's hand axe and pushed back with all his strength. The two warriors locked together as everyone around them held their breath. Elvin stayed focused. He knew these struggles only mattered against a normal goblin, but he was the warrior of the Belden tribe. With a burst of strength, he overpowered Camus and lifted him from the ground. Camus looked stunned as his feet rose into the air, shocked that someone like Elvin could overpower him. He could not believe what had happened. Elvin slammed Camus to the ground head first. Camus bled a lot, and his sword broke during the struggle. The goblins cheered. Hiel ran toward Elvin, and Camus' subordinate rushed over too. Hiel asked if Camus was dead. Elvin doubted it because an orc's head did not break that easily. Camus admitted he lost, and asked Elvin to finish him. Elvin reached for his hand axe, but he said that Camus' life belonged to him now and he would not let him throw it away. Camus was shocked. Elvin asked the other goblins if they had seen what he did. He said they finally won the war against the Corvus tribe. The goblins cheered again. Elvin apologized to Hiel for jumping in and showing off. Hiel said it was fine because it suited him, and he felt thankful instead. He told Camus he could stay on the island for a while if he needed to repair his ship. He asked him to gather his tribe in the meantime. Camus was surprised but promised to fix everything this time. As Elvin walked away from the duel, he saw Fulo looking down at the ground. He called out to her, but she kicked him. Elvin said it hurt and asked what she was doing. Fulo leaned her head on her father and reminded him that she told him not to push himself too much. After that, Camus announced that he and his men would be under Hiel's care and told his group to greet him. Hundreds of orcs from the Corvus tribe became guests on the island, and their strong presence made Hiel a little worried. Ash and Hein followed their queen's order and wanted to serve Hiel, who was Rhee's foster parent. Ash also noticed how the Belden tribe had received his tame and asked if he could be given a name as well. Hiel agreed but explained first that he only used tame to share the effect of his crest. It did not mean everyone was his follower. He just wanted them to protect Riel as his comrades. He named them Ashton and Highness, and the two kobolds promised to protect her with their lives. Hiel sighed as he understood he would soon be very busy. Varys agreed and offered to check the wounded and prepare new living spaces. At that moment, Hiel suddenly felt dizzy. Rhianna asked if he was alright. Hiel said he was only a bit tired. Rhianna noticed he had a fever and decided to take him to his room. She asked Varys to handle the rest, and Varys told her to leave everything to him. Hiel insisted it was not a big problem, but Rhianna said it was since he looked extremely worn out. She lifted him with ease, which made him panic a little. She carried him like a princess, which surprised some of the newcomers. Hiel tried to get down, but Rhianna told him she was strong enough. Hiel said that was not the point. At this rate, he would only get in the way. For now, he needed to leave command to Varys and focus on getting better. While Hiel was resting, the others went to check the defeated Leviathan. They had fought a powerful monster, and the goblins wondered if they should simply bury it. At that moment, Mappa cut off a piece of the Leviathan's meat and ate it. The goblins were too late to stop him and watched as he chewed it. Mappa jumped around with joy and held his cheeks, so the others assumed he liked the taste. Varys called two of Hiel's golems and told them to freeze the area. The cave beneath the reclaimed ground slowly turned into a huge freezer. Hiel had never expected the Leviathan to become food. After that, the goblins still did not know how to handle the golems that had sunk into the sea. They needed a way to pull them out. Just then, the orcs arrived and asked if they could help. They offered their boats and explained that they were skilled on the water. The goblins hesitated but still chose to work with them. It was not going to be easy, but Hiel wanted the two tribes to slowly fix their relationship even if it took time. The Heartstone survived thanks to the Orichalcum Guard, so Hiel hoped to rebuild the body soon. He needed to regain his movement first. Rhianna continued taking care of him and even helped him eat. Hiel told her he was already fine and able to eat by himself, but she kept insisting as if she were his wife. She brought him more food and Hiel eventually gave up. He realized she was more stubborn than he thought. Even so, he was feeling much better thanks to her care. And the medicine Varys made from Yggdrasil leaves seemed to be working as well. Hiel asked Rhianna not to trouble herself too much. He believed he would soon have enough magic energy to heal on his own. Rhianna told him it was no trouble, but asked him to let her do this for him once in a while since they rarely had calm moments like this. Even with her words, Hiel still felt uneasy knowing he was the only one resting while the others continued to work. He also wanted to return to mining as soon as he could. Meanwhile, an excavation team reached an area that felt warmer than usual. One of them agreed while swinging his pickaxe. At that moment, he struck something that sprayed water onto his face. The others were surprised to find water so deep underground. When they felt the heat, they realized it was not normal water, but a hot spring. Ever since Hiel sailed to the abandoned reef, he had rescued a wrecked ship and fought a strong monster. He had already faced many hard trials. However, his current situation felt like the greatest danger he had ever met. After a hard battle, he shared a bath with Rhaena. He tried his best not to look. Rhaena said the hot springs felt very nice. Hiel answered yes while feeling flustered. Rhaena said there was one back in the Belden tribe's hometown and she enjoyed it every day. Hiel only answered yes again, his face remaining red. He felt confused and wondered how this strange moment had even happened. About a week earlier, inside his room, Hiel tried to swing his pickaxe. Before he could finish the swing, pain spread through his body, and he groaned. Reina and the others rushed in and asked what was wrong. As Reina helped him back to his bed, she scolded him for not resting first. Camus called Hiel a sinful man for making a girl worry. Hiel felt shocked to see all of them and asked why they had come. Camus said they were only passing by while Reina was giving them a tour of the island. He then reminded Reina about something. Reina handed Hiel his clothes. They looked new again. She said they were repaired using spider silk and were now stronger than they had been before. Hiel thanked her. Soon after, Ashton said the island was full of surprises. He had thought it was only a simple reef, but it had a wide underground area with strong smithing tools. Camus said he had seen many lands but had never seen a Yggdrasil before. Hiel said he wanted to make the island a better place for everyone. He asked the newcomers to tell him anything they noticed. Camus promised that his tribe would work hard to be accepted as fellow islanders. Reina apologized for the Belden tribe, who still felt scared when they saw the orcs. Camus said it was not their fault and knew that trust would take time. Hiel said the goblins had accepted him even though he was human. He believed they would also open their hearts to the orcs soon. Camus thanked Hiel for his words, but he wondered how a human who was kind to others had built such a strong land. Hiel said it would take a long time to explain. He said he came from San Falis and that Sheol Reef was still part of the kingdom. Just when Camus looked surprised upon hearing that, Fuli ran in and said they had trouble. Hiel asked what had happened. Fuli reported that hot water had burst out from underground and formed a pool. Everyone rushed to check where the water was coming from. Varys was already there and asked how Hiel was doing. Hiel told him he was fine and said he was impressed by the discovery. Elvin confirmed that it was a hot spring and said he loved it. Fool could not believe her father was being positive when there was a risk of flooding. A goblin pointed out the exact spot where they had been mining and where the water had started to gush out without stopping. Hiel asked Fool if this kind of thing also happened in the mines on the continent. Fool said it did, but never with this much water. Hiel worried that the water might be dangerous. However, Mappa was already there, soaking and enjoying the hot spring. Elvin complained that it was unfair. Varys said it looked safe but promised to check it later as well. Hiel thanked him. Hiel then asked Mappa if there was a way to bring the hot water out of the cave. Varys said it was easy to make water flow from a mountain down, but bringing it up might be impossible. After thinking for a moment, Mappa suddenly looked excited. He then ran back to the smithy to work on his idea. Hiel understood that Mappa wanted to use the workshop to make stone molds and then shape iron ore with them. The newcomers were shocked when iron ore appeared out of nowhere. Hiel explained that it came from his inventory skill. Everyone became busy making iron pipes from the molds. Mappa also changed the arms of 2 golems so they could do welding work. A thin line of fire magic came from their arms and melted the pipes together. Soon a large project began to move the hot water up to the surface. Mappa built a strange machine that pushed the water upward. Since they did not want to waste the water, a large public bath was also built on the surface. The orcs did most of the building work. Hiel wanted to help, but his wife would not allow him. He had no choice but to leave the work to everyone else. After a week of construction, it was finally time to send the hot water to the surface. A huge bathhouse now stood above ground. Hiel felt glad that the work was finished. Camus wondered how the water would rise all the way up to the surface. Varys arrived with the others and confirmed that one of the golems was already running the underground device using wind magic. Mappa then gave a signal to one of the goblins. The goblin turned on the valves and the statue shaped like Mappa opened its mouth. Everyone waited in silence. At first the statue only made bubbling sounds, and nothing happened. Mappa walked behind the statue and hit it once. Hot water suddenly poured out from the Mappa statue. Hiel praised Mappa for the good work, though he felt the design was a bit strange. Fool and Elvin were amazed by the hot spring. When they showed how excited they were, Camus told them to take the first bath and said the goblins could wait. Elvin answered by kicking Camus into the water. Camus became angry and demanded to know what he was doing. Elvin ignored him and told everyone to enjoy the hot spring together. He reminded them to wash first and not jump in like the orcs. Camus shouted that he had been kicked. Soon both goblins and orcs began their baths. Adults and children enjoyed the warm water. Elvin felt relaxed while soaking in the pool. Camus felt his tired body slowly recover. Varys thanked Camus for all his hard work. Elvin then teased him and asked if the building work was already too much for him. He joked that Camus' orc muscles were only for show. Camus became angry and asked if his strong body was being insulted. One orc quietly warned Elvin that making fun of their leader's muscles would set him off. Camus then started posing to show off his muscles. Meanwhile, Ashton and Highness looked after their princess. Riel happily enjoyed the hot water while sitting on a floating bucket. Riel felt glad to see everyone having fun. He thought Shell also wanted to try the water and suggested going in together. Just then, Elvin warned his daughter not to swim in the hot spring. Fuller replied, and Hiel suddenly realized something. He turned and saw Full already ready for a bath and asking why he had not entered the water yet. The women were bathing on the other side and enjoying themselves as well. Shocked, Hiel asked Varys if he had not separated everyone. The old goblin looked confused and asked what he meant. At that moment, Rihanna arrived with a towel and a bucket and offered to wash Hiel's back. Hiel froze in shock. He felt torn between his thoughts, but he quickly shook them away. He then ran off, saying he was not feeling well and would join later. Rihanna watched him leave and wondered what was wrong. Hiel got scared and went down to the caves on his own. He told Shell that he should have gone with the others. He truly wanted to go with them too, but he felt like he would be taking advantage of their help. While walking, he noticed the water pipes and got an idea. He followed them to the source of the hot water. There was enough water for him to soak in, which made him feel relieved. He did not expect Mappa to pull it off, but the dwarf once again proved he was a genius. Soon after, Reyna came over after guessing that Hiel had gone to the water source. Hiel got flustered and asked why she followed him. Reyna said it was only natural that she could not leave him alone. She said sorry to everyone for being noisy and too excited earlier. She thought Hiel wanted to enjoy the hot spring without all the noise. She then asked if she could join him. That was how Hiel found himself facing what felt like the greatest danger of his life. To break the silence, Reyna talked about a nearby ore that shone like a star. Hiel got flustered again and tried to distract himself by checking the items in his inventory skill to calm down. Then Reyna's voice turned soft as she said she had something important to tell him. Hiel wondered what it could be since they were alone, even though Shell and one golem were nearby. Reyna said she had not sorted out the feelings of her tribe yet. She said sorry to him. She knew Camus and the others were not at fault, but thoughts of their old home always stayed in their hearts. They could not help but look back at it. Still, seeing the Belden and Corvus tribes working together, eating together, and enjoying the hot springs together made her very happy. Hiel smiled and felt glad to hear that. He said she did not need to apologize. He knew it was not easy to let go of the past, but he also knew she wanted both tribes to get along. He believed it would be fine since their island already had goblins, slimes, cave spiders, kobolds, a naked old man, and even a human. He believed everyone would get along in the end. Reyna quietly leaned her back against his. She thanked him. Hiel got flustered and his face turned red when he felt her skin touching his. He tried to move away, but he noticed she had already fallen asleep. He remembered how she had used up almost all her energy but still kept working hard for him. He let her rest against his back and thanked her in his heart. After a while, Reyna finally woke up and found Hiel unconscious while clinging to Shell to avoid drowning. He had stayed in the hot spring for too long and the blood rushed to his head. Maybe the hot spring had helped because he finally felt like his old self again. He could swing his pickaxe without getting hurt. He felt happy that he could finally mine again. The girls were happy for him too, but they asked if it was really something to cry about. Camus also came over to congratulate him on his recovery. Then he asked Hiel if he could have a short talk with him. The two went up to the surface where they enjoyed the cool wind. Camus then took out a document and said it was a small surprise for Hiel's recovery. The paper showed a plan of a harbor. Hiel felt shocked and wondered if Camus had made it. Camus explained that Varys had asked him to work on it, and he thought they could use the reclaimed land as a base for the harbor. Camus also remembered how Hiel wanted to trade with the outside world someday, but had to take apart Belden's ships to do so. Hiel said they did not have enough lumber. Camus then suggested using his tribe's ship. Hiel wondered if that was really fine. Camus explained that the part damaged by the Leviathan attack was now fixed, but they still did not have a proper harbor or dock to use. Hiel then noticed some marks on the blueprint and saw the words strictly not necessary. Camus admitted he got too excited with the design and later realized they could not follow it exactly. Hiel felt impressed because the plan looked better than the one from the kingdom. When he thought about it, Camus remembered that Hiel came from Sanfalis. Hiel confirmed it and shared that he was the 17th prince of the kingdom. He said he was a failure who was pushed out of his own country. Since he had spoken to Reyna about it, he slowly became more comfortable telling others. Camus felt sorry for bringing up such a hard topic. Hiel said the reef might belong to the kingdom, but it was mostly abandoned and humans did not go near it. He said they could live on the island without trouble. He then excitedly suggested telling Varys and Mappa about the construction and went back into the cave. Camus did not seem to believe in his own plan, so Hiel turned it into reality. He reclaimed part of the sea and began building right away on his own. Camus stood in silence. Elvin proudly said this was what their boss could do. Camus could not believe that this was the power of the Cave King crest. He felt shocked and called Hiel amazing for building a perfect harbor. Hiel said he could only build the base for now. He asked Camus to watch over the rest of the work. Camus felt confused and nervous. Varys said Camus was the best person for the job. Reyna wished him good luck. With their support, Camus promised to build the greatest harbor they had ever seen. Hiel felt glad to hear that and offered his help. The destroyed golems were finally rebuilt. Hiel thanked them and said he was counting on them once again. Since they needed more stones for the harbor, Hiel went back to mining. He could dig a large amount on his own. Fool saw that he had fully recovered by now. However, she asked why he was not using his mithril pickaxe. Hiel said he had it with him, but the one he normally used was smaller and easier to handle. At the same time, his assistants were busy with their princess. Riel played with Aston's tail and laughed while chasing it. Riel then asked Aston to play with Riel for a while so they could keep her entertained. Fool then teased Highness and told him to mine for his older brother's share too. Highness accepted the challenge right away. Full knew kobolds could use weapons, but she doubted they could mine well with pickaxes. Hiel tried to stop Full from teasing Highness, but Ashton stopped him. Ashton said they should thank Full instead. He believed her open and friendly attitude made newcomers like them feel welcome. Full showed Highness where to strike and he started mining on his own. Hiel expected good results from someone who was proud of his strength. Soon, Hylas began to compete with Full as he mined faster and stronger. Hyla felt glad to see their group of miners growing. Ashton also wanted to help with the work, but Riel still wanted to play with him and stay by his side. Suddenly, Riel noticed something shining from a corner of the cave. She ran toward it and started scratching at the spot. Ashton noticed it too and followed her. Highness shouted that mining was more fun than he expected. Full smiled and said there were many more ores waiting to be found. Ashton then called out to Hiel and said there was something strange in the corner. Hylands thought his brother was trying to compete with him by finding something first. Full complained that it was unfair for Riel to find things for Ashton. What Riel and Ashton found was a box. Hyland thought it was made of orichalcum. Full guessed it might be a coffin because of its size. Ashton felt uneasy about that idea. He then noticed something lying on the ground nearby. Hiel checked it with his ore guide and realized it was a new type of stone. The stone was called a transport stone. It allowed people to move instantly between transport stones. The distance depended on the size of the stone. Hiel believed this meant they could travel to another place if another stone existed somewhere else. Full then noticed a hollow space on the orichalcum box. She pointed out that it had the same shape as the transport stone. Hiel placed the stone inside. It fit perfectly. At that moment the stone shone brightly and blinded everyone. The box began to glow and made mechanical sounds. Full thought they might be able to travel somewhere now, but she wondered where it would lead. Ashton told her to wait since they did not know where they would end up. While the group discussed what to do next, Mappa quietly sneaked behind them and climbed into the box. His body began to fade from the bottom up until he completely disappeared. Only then did everyone notice him and call out his name in shock. Hiel told everyone to stay where they were while he went to follow Mappa. At that moment, Riel's clairvoyance activated and affected everyone. Hiel believed that what Riel showed them was the place where Mappa had been sent. Since it did not look dangerous, Hiel decided to go and check it. He asked Shell to inform Varys. Riel then ran past him and entered the box. Fulla followed with excitement. As Riel's bodyguards, Ashton and Highness also went inside. The space was too small, and Fulla asked if all of them really needed to go together. Ashton told Highness to come later. As Highness tried to struggle his way out, everyone was suddenly transported away. They all landed on top of each other when they arrived at their destination. Hiel groaned as he tried to look at what was in front of them. He was shocked to see a huge library with tall shelves packed with books. Seeing so many books, Fulla wondered if they were still in Shul Reef. Hiel believed they were deep inside the reef. The place looked like the room with the change stone and the golems. He noticed stairs that led underground and felt uneasy about them. Hionis then confirmed Mappa's location by smell. He suggested heading in that direction because it felt like the right path. Hiel asked him to lead the way. Everyone moved through rows of bookshelves until they found Mappa lying flat on the floor in a pool of blood. Hiel rushed to help him and checked what had happened. The blood came from Mappa's nose, and an adult book lay beside him. Hiel realized Mappa had not been attacked at all. He closed the book and healed him. Mappa stood back up. Hiel said everyone had been worried, and suggested going back home. A book suddenly fell from a shelf. Curious, Mappa picked it up. A page showed several drawings. One of them was a crest that everyone knew very well. Hiel told him to keep moving. Mappa threw the book away, and it landed on a ledge. When Hiel and the others returned to the transport pod, they saw the group Shell had brought. Varys showed a book and said it was an amazing find. Hiel asked if it was a good book, but Varys could not understand the words. Hiel also could not read them. Camus said the place felt full of adventure. With a teleport device, a giant library, and a lost civilization under Sheol, he felt the area was full of hidden treasure. His pirate spirit pushed him to explore more. Hiel agreed but warned that some parts were falling apart and there might be hostile goblins. He told everyone to be careful. The group then spread out and explored every corner they could find. Soon after, Reyna found something and called out to Hiel. It was a detailed drawing of a place that looked very real. Hiel wondered what kind of town it was since he had never seen buildings like those before. At that moment, Full noticed something at the back of the town in the drawing. A tall mountain stood there, and it looked like Sheol Reef. However, its size was very different. Reyna giggled and said Sheol looked more lively. Hiel then noticed Sheol staring at something. He and the others walked over to him to see what was wrong. Sheol was looking closely at a statue of a woman holding a long scepter. Reyna thought the statue looked beautiful and guessed it might be a goddess. Hiel believed the people who once lived in these ruins must have worshipped her. Even the kingdom did not have records of ruins like this. He wondered if more ruins were still hidden under Sheol Reef, waiting to be found. They gathered a few heartstones and magic stones from the remains of the golems. Still, the underground world remained a mystery to everyone. Varys offered to study the old books, and Hiel decided to rely on him. The old goblin doubted he would be able to read them properly. Just then Full noticed something strange. There was a crack in a wall nearby, and she gently tapped it with her pickaxe. She told Hiel that there might be an open space behind the wall. Everyone searched around, but they did not find any clear entrance. Full suggested digging through the wall. Hiel checked the area and did not feel any magic energy behind it. Instead, he saw lights that showed good places to dig. To be safe, he cast defensive magic on Full. She then swung her pickaxe and struck the wall. The wall broke open and formed a large hole big enough to enter. When Fulla went inside, she was shocked to see something familiar. She ran toward it right away. Hiel also saw what she had found and congratulated her. He confirmed that they were change stones. On top of that, there were 3 of them. Before this discovery, Fulla always woke up earlier than everyone else. After getting out of her bunk bed, she put on her work clothes and went straight to the mines. No one cared more about mining than she did. Every day she entered the tunnels before anyone else, even before Hiel, and she stayed until the very end. Hiel grew worried about how deeply focused she had become. Still, he knew there was something she wanted more than anything. Back in the present, everyone returned to the surface and took a short break. The group began asking if the change stone truly had the power to make monsters evolve. Reina confirmed it and said she had evolved because of it. Kamyu felt confused. Full then said their princess had once been an ordinary goblin. This stunned the Kobold brothers, and they wondered if evolution was really possible. Kamyu finally realized that Reina had been the princess of the Belden tribe the whole time. He had believed she was an elven princess who ran away with Hiel. His words shocked the two, and they spat out the tea they were drinking. They quickly asked what he was talking about. Kamyu could not believe they were still acting that way. Hiel then brought the focus back to the real issue. He said he never expected to find 3 change stones at once. Since Fulla had discovered them and had searched for them for so long, she would naturally receive one. Hiel also suggested that Varus should take one. The old goblin felt surprised and said there should be someone more fitting. Hiel explained that he had thought about it before and felt it was a waste that Varus's Sorcerer King crest had gone inactive. Kamyu felt shocked when he heard this. He said it was the strongest type of sorcery crest. Ashton agreed and said Varus would become amazing if he could use his crest again. Elvin looked at Varus with concern and said his age was starting to catch up with him. He said he would be happy if Varus could gain a new and younger body and stay healthy for many years. Full thought Varus was dying. Reina said she did not want to lose him. The old goblin laughed softly and admitted that he once dreamed of using his crest again. Varus then formally asked Hiel for permission to use a change stone. Now there was 1 change stone left. However, Hiel noticed that no one around wanted to evolve. The Kobold brothers confirmed that they could already use their crests well. Varus then remembered that Kamyu had a crest after seeing it during their shared bath. Kamyu confirmed it as he removed the glove from his left hand. Hiel had never seen such a crest before, but Varus recognized it at once. He explained that it was a sea dragon crest with the power to control the weather. He also said that he had only heard of aquatic monsters like mermen being able to obtain it. Hiel was surprised to learn that there were crests that only monsters could use. Flustered, Kamyu put his glove back on and made it clear that he did not insist on using his crest. Elvin wondered why, since such a crest would be useful for a sailor like him. Kamyu called the idea a joke and showed his disgust toward aquatic monsters and their slimy scales. He strongly refused because it did not match his beauty standards. Hiel realized he could not force him, so he decided to save the remaining change stone for later. After that, they decided to try the change stones right away. As she held the stone, Full said she felt nervous and asked Reina how to use it. Reina told her to picture in her mind what she wanted to become and to wish strongly on the stone. She also wished her good luck. Full closed her eyes and imagined what she wanted to become. She thought about how everyone around her had always protected her from danger. However, she decided that being left behind would end today. The change stone in her hand suddenly shone brightly. She declared herself the daughter of the great warrior Elvin. A strong light covered her and blinded everyone nearby. The newcomers could not believe what they were seeing. Hiel looked away while covering Mappa's eyes and asked Reina to help Fulla. Fulla felt confused when her view suddenly became higher. While standing naked, she asked if it worked. Her arms and legs had grown longer and her body had grown taller all at once. Reina covered her with a towel and asked if she wanted to look. Shell then turned into a mirror. Full looked at her reflection and her eyes widened with joy. She hugged Reina and said that she had done it. She had evolved. Reina confirmed it and congratulated her. Elvin felt glad to see her grow, but he also felt disappointed when he saw how thin she looked. He doubted that she had even grown stronger. Full complained that her father only cared about muscles. She said that she wanted to use magic instead. She excitedly asked if she could use it now. Hiel focused on her and confirmed that he could see magic energy flowing inside her. He said that she could learn how to use it. Full felt happy after hearing that. However, she noticed that her skin was still green. She thought it would change like Reina's. She wondered why only Reina looked human after evolving. Full said that she had wished for a body that could use magic. Reina became flustered and could not answer the question. She said that evolution might be different for each person. Full wondered if that was truly the case. Hearing that, Varus thought he might change into something new too. Reina felt excited about his evolution. Suddenly Varus glowed with a bright light. When the light faded, everyone looked puzzled. Varus still looked the same as before. Even the old goblin seemed confused and asked what had happened. Camus also looked confused and said that nothing had changed. At that moment Varus noticed something. He shook with surprise. He dropped his cane. His voice shook as he spoke because of what he had discovered. He celebrated as his bent back finally straightened. It had been a problem for many years. He felt glad that it was now healed. Hiel said that was great too, but he pointed out Varus's crest. The crest was showing a strong concentration of mana. Both Hiel and Reyna could see it. They thought it was incredible. Varus then asked Hiel for permission to use magic, even if it was just a simple spell. He felt sure that his Sorcerer King crest was asking the same thing. He focused and cast a fire spell. Flames burst from his hands, surprising everyone. The intense fire shocked them. Varus apologized. However, his voice now sounded younger and cooler. His appearance had changed as well. He said his crest was truly remarkable. Adjusting his magic was a little difficult. Everyone stared in astonishment. Elvin asked if he was really Varus. Varus confirmed he was. He was also shocked and emotional. He had never thought the day would come when he could use magic. He felt like a completely different person. Hiel said the magic was impressive, and so was his appearance. Varus asked what he meant. Shell offered to show his reflection in a mirror. Varus was shocked to see himself looking younger. He then fell to the ground and returned to his original appearance. Hiel explained what he knew about the Sorcerer King crest. He said it had the power to change its owner into the form that could use magic most efficiently. Varus had not expected his crest to have such an effect. Hiel said that was all he knew. In the kingdom, no one had ever shown him their true abilities. Varus said it was fine because he looked forward to studying his own crest. Hiel was happy to see his diligence. He was confident that Varus would master his crest and become a great sorcerer. As Hiel returned to the mines, Fulla followed him from behind. She showed off her new clothes and asked if she looked good. Hiel thought she looked really cool. Fulla was happy to hear that and explained that Reyna had worked hard to make her outfit. She decided to start mining and quickly found some magic crystals. Hiel told her to collect them as she found them. Even though they were finding fewer magic crystals than before, which were used to increase magic energy, Hiel's and Reyna's magic had already grown very strong. Varus's Sorcerer King crest was powerful on its own. Because of this, they focused on collecting crystals for Fulla. But it would not matter if she could not learn how to use magic. Huliur began teaching her how to use magic. He explained how to convert magic energy and use it in magic circles. Full struggled to follow the lesson. Her head felt like it would burst, but she tried to listen until the end. Classroom learning was hard for her, but her intuition was not bad. On her first try, she successfully cast a free spell. Everyone felt proud as she used magic for the first time. She celebrated, raising her fist in the air, happy to finally use magic. Her aim was still off, and the free spell accidentally hit Mappa, who was watching from the side. Hiel thought it was still impressive for a first attempt. As he helped Mappa recover, he noticed how Full really looked up to her father. Elvin said he would be happy if that was true. Hiel wondered if he had assumed wrong. Elvin asked if Hiel knew the stone-taking game. Hiel said he had seen children play it sometimes. Elvin explained that Full had made him play that game many times. He thought it was unusual because the game required thinking, but then Varus told him something. Full had lost to Reyna, became frustrated, and cried a lot. Hiel realized that this moment showed Fulla's growth. Elvin scratched his head. He thought she might feel ashamed because she was the princess's subject, but his daughter really hated losing, especially to a friend. Hiel then silently shifted his attention to the girls. Watching the girls together and knowing their silent, friendly competition, Hiel suddenly felt a spark of jealousy. After that, the harbor and docks were finished. The orcs finally docked their ship, which had been floating in the sea for a long time. Once the docks were ready, the orcs focused on fixing the remaining damaged parts of the ship. The Corvus tribe's families stayed hidden, so they wanted to return as soon as possible. Hiel told Camus not to worry about fully completing the harbor yet and said they would set sail as soon as the ship was ready. Camus thanked him for that. Since trading would start soon, Hiel suggested thinking about which goods to trade while he was away. The other orcs promised to handle the sea commerce themselves and said they would build a good stock of goods. Seeing how excited the orcs were, Hiel thought the Corvus people were really eager to set sail again. Still, he could not believe that his domain would soon begin trading. He considered starting by selling gems dug from the reef. He also wondered if they could sell the harvest from the Yggdrasil. He knew he still needed to discuss with others what to buy from outside. Just then, a sea creature appeared near the docks.